Welcome, everyone. My name is Ivy Lloyd, and today we are working with the Ohio School Wellness Initiative. I have the pleasure of speaking with Melissa Boggs, the administrator for the Christian Life Academy. Thank you so much for joining us today, Melissa.
Pleasure.
So, Melissa, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for everyone and tell us a little bit about your school and your history in the school system?
I'd be glad to. My name is Melissa Boggs, and I live in southeastern Ohio in a county called Jackson, Ohio. Probably no one has heard of it because we're kind of in a rural area, in the southern part of the state near West Virginia. So I am the administrator for Christian Life Academy, and we are a non-public chartered school with the state of Ohio. And we have students from preschool through grade 12. We have almost 200 students attending. They attend from 8 Ohio counties. And we have students also coming from the state of Kentucky and the state of West Virginia. So we're kind of located in a little corner pocket of a tri-state area with Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia. So we have a very interesting population of students that are some of them driving over an hour to come to our school every day. So kind of gives us a unique diversity of students that come here because some of them, well, we're all from very rural Ohio counties. All the Ohio counties that we serve that are coming to our school are all part of the highest poverty level in the state of Ohio. The same with the ones that are traveling here from counties from Kentucky or West Virginia. So just in Appalachia is what we're finding. Um, and we have students that are coming for lots of different reasons. We have some that are choosing a non-public only because it is smaller than a public school classroom size. Some are coming because our special education program is has a very good reputation of working with special needs students. Some are coming, of course, because of the religious aspect of being able to have a worldview that matches their own in a school setting. I have been here actually almost my whole life because I started kindergarten here with the school in 1981. And I came back in middle school. And then when I finished my education degree, I was a sub here, and then I worked as a teacher here. And then I left and worked in a public school for several years, and the principal job opened. And I thought, I'm going to give it a shot. And I applied and they hired me. So I've been their principal now for 13 years, which has been really great because the group of students I just graduated about a weekend ago included my youngest child. And I had been able to be their principal from kindergarten to 12th grade, that entire cycle. Because when I began as principal, my youngest was in that kindergarten class. So it's really been a pleasure to be able to see them their entire school career, from little kids to now adults, and to be able to hand all three of my kids their diploma. So a real honor to me to be able to work here.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's a family affair, it sounds like.
Yes, absolutely.
And thank you for sharing, Melissa. So, what we're here to talk about today is the SAP program, and SAP stands for Student Assistance Program. So, from your perspective, as someone who has initiated a SAP in your school, can you tell us what SAP is and how it affects your school?
Sure. SAP was something that I felt like we had already been moving in that direction on our own prior to the Ohio School Wellness Initiative becoming available for us, but we didn't really quite know how to organize it in a way that this program has pointed us towards. So we knew that we had kids that were going to be needing referrals, obviously coming out of the pandemic and before, but especially out of the pandemic. So for us, SAP has been able to streamline that process of referrals. So we don't have 12 different referral forms. We have one, and we have a group of educators in our school who are dedicated to making sure those needs are met for each of our kids. So that was a really big draw for us to be a part of this program. And going into it, we realized none of us really understood what SAP was. But working through that program with our committee, we started realizing, oh, we already are doing portions of this. It's just not organized. So it was great to be able to streamline that.
It's really good to hear that SAP helped you kind of uh, bring together something that you already were starting in your school. So it's good that it wasn't just something completely new. It was, hey, we
Right.
already have some of these. Let's just be a little more organized with it. And sometimes it's hard to create an organizational method on your own. And it's like, why reinvent the wheel when someone else can give us all the information we need?
Yes, I think what we really appreciated about that is it did not just focus on mental health needs, which are huge, but it also focused on academic needs. It focused on maybe general needs, like maybe we have a student they don't have the means to get food at home, or they are struggling with finding medical care, or of course they might need a counselor, or they might need a referral for special education. All of that was contained in that process with
Yes, that's
SAP. So that,
right.
we thought that was really meaningful to be used in our school.
For sure. So how did you decide who should be on your student assistance team? And did you have to work hard to recruit people or were people really willing to participate?
Um, well, it's interesting not being a public school because I guess the political dynamics are a little different. Um, we don't have a union and we don't have contract negotiations like a public school. So being able to ask people to help, I think sometimes might be a little bit easier or less of a negotiation, I suppose. So for me, I just specifically asked people that I wanted to be on my team. I said, I would really like you to be on this because you have a background or you have an understanding or you have a life experience that I think could be really, really important to bring to this program. And I was really, really lucky that my staff were like, okay, we're in. So there wasn't really any begging or pleading. I may have, offered chocolate a few times, but they were willing to do this for the kids. The people I chose, I actually had almost 12 people come onto the team. I have 40 staff, but being a non-public, many of them, probably half of them, come from a non-education background. So they're working on an alternative licensure. So I had a classroom teacher this year who she's also a nurse practitioner. So that's been her background for 30 years. She's also been a college professor. And for this present school year, she wanted to make a career change. She always wanted to be a teacher. She worked to get her licensure and she came in and she taught elementary school. Did an amazing job, but what a great person to have on your team. She has the medical background. So she was on our team. One of our high school teachers had a non-traditional education background. So he was actually an emergency management agency director for a long time and came into education. And I said, oh, I would love to have you on this team. You have a background of knowledge that you can bring on here and a perspective that we need that we wouldn't think about normally as educators. So I asked him to be on the team. I asked team leaders from preschool, K through 3, 4 through 8, and high school to come on. So I had teacher representatives. I had our school nurse. I had a pediatrician who has children here that offered to be available if we needed her. And then I asked our receptionist in our office to be part of it because they actually wanted to do the staff wellness. They said, we see how stressed out the staff are. They're coming into the office every day, wanting to kick the copier and all this. So they wanted to take that on. And it was really good to have them come in as a non-educator and be a part of it too. And then we contract with a mental health agency provider in our community called Hopewell Health. And their director director and one of the counselors that comes into our school several days a week to do counseling. I asked them to be on the team. So I just thought it was really important to have community partners come on the team, people who were not educators, but really involved with the kids and staff, and then staff that had that non-traditional background that was really meaningful to bring in different insights and also different ways to do referrals than what we would think. And then the team leaders. And I also had all of our administrators on the team. So special education administrator, principals, all of us were in on that.
Okay, that's awesome. And so I feel like you kind of answered the next question as well, which was, do you have any tips for people getting into the program on how to build a student assistant team? It sounds like you basically had a list in your head already of people that you felt like were diverse and had insights that were necessary, that had different perspectives from yourself, so that y'all could come together and build a team that is more well-rounded.
Yeah. Also tried to pick people who I felt like needed to build their leadership skills. Because as a leader, I feel like if I'm not training new leaders, I'm not a very effective leader because I won't be here forever. Someday I'll have to retire. So I like to look at other staff members. Maybe they're new, maybe they're non-education background, and they're feeling like, oh, I don't have maybe the experience to come in and do this. So I think it's really important that we give them those opportunities and also the leadership experience to be on teams like this so that they can grow professionally too.
And it's a great way to look at it, where it's not just, okay, how are we helping the students, but you're also helping your teammates or, your employees, because not only are they helping the students, but they're becoming better leaders in the process, which I'm sure helps them to be better teachers and everything else that's involved in the process.
And helps us to be a better school. It helps
Right.
serve our families better. So yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It sounds like you did put a lot of thought into that, and I think that's wonderful. So we're gonna move on to question 3.
Okay.
Many groups are worried about the time commitment involved in executing an effective SAP. Can you speak on this and how you and your colleagues address this need?
About the
But
time the staff had to put in.
yes.
We met about twice a month and we did it through a Zoom conference. So we met about 4 o'clock twice a month through Zoom. And that's actually seemed to help take away some of the stress of, oh, I have to stay at work for another meeting because they could do it from home. And we kept it to about 45 minutes. And we always had an agenda. So I would send the agenda out. This is what we're going to go over. This is everything we're going to address and focus on. And just to keep everyone, on the same page. And no one likes to sit through a meeting for 2 hours when it could have been an email. So for us, we just had targeted goals every time. This is what we're coming in doing. This is how long we're going to take. And this is what we're going to focus on for next time. And if there were readings or things that I felt like were important, I sent them ahead of time so that they could have time to read through that and be informed of what we were going to be talking about.
Okay, so it sounds like you did a lot of prep work so that the meetings could run smoothly as you actually going into them.
Yes. And there were times that I would kind of, I hate to say give homework, but give leadership opportunities to different people in the group. And I would say, I'm going to send some information for the next meeting to you and you. And I want you to work together to read through this and to do a really quick presentation to our whole group on the Zoom meeting. Just 10 minutes of this is the readings that we did. This is the research we looked over, and this is how we can implement it in our school. And that seemed to kind of break up the enormity because when I first started looking through the live binder that they sent me, I thought, oh my goodness, there are years worth of reading here. But when we dispersed it throughout our committee, it wasn't so cumbersome or overwhelming. And that seemed to make everyone feel better.
Yeah, delegating things down to other people It's
Yeah.
always beneficial rather than
Yes,
trying
ma'am.
to yeah, do it all yourself. So, what strategies have you found for helping to engage the students and caregivers in the program?
Um, most of the families and the kids were very open to us engaging, bringing them bringing them these new ideas because we had kind of already been starting that process right after the pandemic on our own. So it wasn't really something that was brand new or foreign to them because we had already been reaching out in a lot of these ways. Like I said earlier, it just wasn't organized in the streamlined way that SAP process brought into that table for us. So I think it was very positive and they were open to it.
That's awesome. Um, what are some ways you're able to ensure the plans created for the students are individualized and based on their specific needs rather than like a cookie cutter one size fits all response?
That was something that our committee was able to do when we met together and we would bring our list of students that we were doing referrals for, and they would work together. I mean, they know these kids. That was the great part of having teachers involved from each team. They knew the kids, they knew their needs, they knew the families. Also, we're in a really small school, so we know our families pretty well. We have very good communication with them. So I think that that is what helped us to individualize things because we had those teachers on there that had really good relationships established with the families and kids. It wasn't like we were getting a stranger to work with. It was someone that we were already invested in their life. And we wanted to make sure that we were meeting their needs in the best way we could.
That's awesome. I actually did an interview with another school, and what they did was they put up a picture of each student on the wall, and the teachers came up and wrote their own names underneath the pictures of the students that they felt like they had a deep connection to. So right, so it's like if ever a student popped up on the list, it was like, okay, that's one of my kids, and I can go and have a conversation with this kid and their parent or caregiver, and we can begin the process.
Yes, and that's really what our people in our committee did. They started with the teachers first, and then they would reach out to the parents second, and the kids. So it wasn't just here's a list of names and let's write a generic plan. This is my students. How can I help my students? And that's how they approached it.
Yeah, and it gives you a sense of ownership. Well, not ownership. I don't wanna say ownership over the students, but, a sense of
Connection.
responsibility. Yeah,
Yeah,
connection, to your kids because they're your kids.
they are our kids. Yeah.
Right. So what tips do you have for, working with community partners?
Well, I have found that most of our community partners are thrilled to be able to be a part of a school. Um, they appreciate us reaching out to them and letting them come in and be a part of us because there's some schools that have not always felt really open to them. So our main community partner was Hopewell Health. We have a fantastic relationship with them. They have actually been working with us for about 5 years, and one of their directors is married to one of our teachers. So that was already a great relationship there that they were already kind of part of our school. I think a really great thing that we worked with them that came out of this is they're also coming to do a summer program here now with our school. And so being able to make our facility really a community facility that the community partner felt like we're not just here one day a week or we're not just here through the school year. We are here all year to help all these kids and also to help our community at that school. And we can bring other people from the community to the school. And, I just think being open and being willing to allow them to come in with new programs. They came to me with lots of ideas and I was thrilled with them. So, like, they did a suicide awareness week with our middle school and high school in the fall, and Hopewell brought in they probably brought in 5 different community partners on their own into our facility, and I thought it was great. All these resources for our families and kids and teachers that I wouldn't have been able to find, but that's their niche and that's what they do. And they were able to make those connections for us. So I'm always open to community partners. I think our kids need that. Our staff need that. Um, to be able to make our community great for our families involves all of us being a part of that. So I say bring it on. I'm open to having great relationships with the community partners.
Exactly, and it really sounds like the, what did you say the name of the organization was again?
Hopewell Health.
Hopewell Health. It sounds like they really were. I mean, other than the fact that, they have a child that goes to the school,
Right.
uh, um, it sounds like they really were invested in helping because the fact that they just came forward with more resources is beautiful because sometimes as the educator, it's hard to know where to search for certain things. But since they're already in that field, it's a lot easier for them to find the resources and share those. So that's beautiful.
Yeah. And I will say I felt like it was nice. It was really great to have community partners that were they were very respective of our worldview because working for a religious institution, um, that's an important thing for us that our worldview is respected. Um, that our policies and our beliefs are respected, and they were very every community partner that has come this year, they have been really respectful of that. They've understood I'm walking into a Christian school. They don't want people cursing in here. They're probably going to be a little strict on stuff, but they were really willing to work with us with that. I appreciated that.
Many schools have shared that partnering with mental health programs has been easier than integrating substance abuse and other intervention programs. Can you share some of your successes in this area or recommendations you have for groups that need some ideas?
Um, I feel like you have to have them all because our kids are experiencing all of that. We happen to be in our part of the state of Ohio and all those 8 counties we serve and those 2 states, uh, high highest opioid addictions in the state of Ohio. So I have to say, even just this year, I've had 2 students who've had a parent overdose that go to our school. There's this idea of what's a Christian school. People there don't have, and, families there shouldn't have drug problems or, yeah, they do, just like anywhere else, because it's people. People have the same problems no matter where you go. And I think it would be foolish of us as a private school to think that our students are not going to need mental health intervention, substance abuse prevention, or substance abuse intervention programs because they are living in homes and in a community where that's a major problem. So we have all of those programs here because we have the need for that. And I think we need to understand that as school leaders, that your kids, they're living all that already. So we have to be able to step in and to be able to provide support in their lives, including your staff, because a lot of your staff are living in homes where that's already happening. They may have that problem and you may not even be aware of that. So to me, that is vital that in schools we have these prevention programs established. They need to be there now before you find out there's a major issue in your facility. Um, our staff and our kids already need that support. So I encourage every school to invest in mental health, which probably we all have right now, programs, but substance abuse and intervention. It's completely necessary in our world today. And I don't see it going away. I don't really see it improving, maybe for a generation. But I can tell you that as a private school, if I had 2 students lose a parent this year to a drug overdose, a public school had a much higher rate. And so we are finding that we are the ones even doing the grief counseling for the kids that are coming back in. My staff we've went to lots of funerals this year that we didn't expect to go to for students that have lost someone. Um, and that's hard on my staff too. So then you have to be able to provide those supports to your staff as they come back. I took 10 of my staff to a funeral for a mother that had overdosed about 2 months ago. And it really, really took a toll on my staff. Took a couple weeks for them not to step in the building and have tears when they saw that child because they love that child. And that's the cost of love, is having to go through hard things with them. So I encourage every school, invest in all those prevention programs. All your staff need it. All your kids need it.
Yeah. And it's good to acknowledge that every human being can possibly have any problem without, like, "Oh, you're Christian, so you shouldn't have, you shouldn't even consider that." It's like, no, everyone has a life and everyone has experiences outside of when you see them at work, and anything can happen. We never know what someone's home life is like. So having a non-judgmental help system that people can come in and participate in as staff or as, a student coming in, is that's really good. And the mental health on top of that can help prevent people from going that route as they go through the grief process. Because a lot of time people get stuck in the grief, and that's when substance abuse happens. So that's a really good thing that you guys have initiated. And I'm so sorry for the losses that you guys experienced. It's always hard when you
It
have to
is.
hear things like that. Yeah.
It is.
So, next question. As summer is approaching, we would like to begin strategizing on how to reach a greater audience. And I've kind of broken down the audiences into three main groups, and we wanted to hear your recommendations. So, the first group that we want to talk about is people in the education system. So, educators, school board members, and administrators.
I think most educators, they want to see this happen. They see the need already. Um, Same with your administrators. Everyone working in a school, they already see the need. Um, I I think the main thing is they don't know how to implement it time wise. You know, how do we make this important? How do we make time for this with everything else we have to do? How do we have buy-in from our staff to be able to participate? Um, so recommendations on how to reach them. You're always going to have some people that will only participate if there's a stipend involved. I mean, they'll only do it for money. Um, Maybe provide training that would have CEUs that they could use towards licensure renewal. That's always a draw for a lot of educators, also social workers. Um, I would love to see that our counselors, school psychologists, school nurses, mental health providers, that they would be able to have some buy-in to it by maybe being a part of the state committees that put this together. Um, to maybe be a part of the curriculum delivery if you're going to have that. Um, and maybe if you even had a representative from OSWI that could come into the buildings, even if it's just once, or do a Zoom meeting with the staff to try to get buy-in, I think that could help to show them, hey, here's what we've seen in our pilot schools. This, these changes that are coming in, and they're really positive and they're really making a difference. And let's brainstorm together of how you can bring this into your school. And I think you're always going to have some of these groups that are going to just say, we're doing that already, or we're doing enough of that already. Um, Kind of like I think our staff felt when I first said, hey, I've got this committee, I need you to be on. um, but also maybe trying to show them how this could streamline all your processes and serve your kids in a way. I mean, it takes some time to set it up, but once you have it set up, it can streamline and delete your 12 other referral forms that you've got going on down into one. It'll save you time. It will be less paperwork. It will be more targeted towards the needs that the kids have, and it will involve staff that really know these kids, providers that are working with these kids, and it'll have a better outcome. I mean, that would be my suggestion. It seems like the biggest thing for people, it's always time and money. So I hate to when money becomes a focus, but it does for a lot of people. So I would say, show them they can save time, maybe encourage those schools to give a stipend if they serve on a committee. And, maybe I'd love at the state level if they would provide funding to see more of these programs happen. But we know that's always a fight at the state or federal level to get anything that's lasting. Myself, I'd love to see funding come about that could implement these in schools that would be long term, more than just 2 years, because then we know what happens. It just drops off or people let it go.
Yeah, and it's detrimental, especially when kids are used to it for a certain amount of time, and then they come back and it's like, "Oh, well, we're not doing that anymore." It's like, "Okay, well, I still need it though," you know? Um, and the stipends and everything, it definitely makes sense. There are a lot of communities out there that are very concerned with money and, time and how to get all of that together. So I think all of your tips are very good. Do you have and I on our list, we have transportation staff and food service providers. So do you have any tips for that as well? Same question, strategizing on how to reach them.
Well, I don't have transportation staff here, so I have not had to work with transportation staff. Um, our food service providers in our school are volunteers from our church that sponsors our school, but they already do a lot of outreach with our kids. So, um, anything that would promote connection and real relationship and investment of time in the lives of your kids and staff is, I think, what's going to have the most positive outcome.
Right, for sure.
That's a vague answer.
Well, I mean, but it also is the most logical one. It makes sense.
Know
Um,
their names,
yeah,
know their names, provide training for your transportation staff and food service providers. I mean, I hope in most schools they're still getting the same training to know like warning signs and um, intervention strategies if you feel like someone's self harming or needing a referral for mental health or any other type of help, but to keep them informed too.
for sure, for sure. So, what resources were helpful during the past year, that you received from OSWI?
Well, our district, I don't know the title. I'm going to say district representative or the person over our area. I happen to know her because I have traveled with her with another grant program for about 10 years. So it was really nice to have someone that we knew that was a representative for OSWI. She already knew my school culture. She already knew me. And then she understood my staff. She understood that we were not a public school. We're still a school, but a private school is a lot different than a public school. Well, they're a lot alike, a lot different, but she was a great resource. Her name's Melinda Norman, and she was constantly sending us emails about more training we could have. So one of the ones that was referred to us, it was in the OSWI newsletter, but Melinda also sent it was mental health first aid training. And so I had everyone on our staff do it, and it was really good. I had been through training like that before, but not all of the staff had because I've been teaching a long time. So, but we had everybody, office staff, school nurse, all the teaching aides, all the teachers, even our pastor of the church here. All of us did that mental health first aid training. And everyone walked away from that day and they said, this was really good. I'm really glad we did this. I could really use this in class. I'm like, that's great. So I thought that was excellent that they provided us resources for really good training and it was free, which was even better. So we're always open to resources because being a non-public school, we don't always have all the resources that public schools have. So that's why I've appreciated being part of the program this year as a pilot school, because these are things I wouldn't have had access to for my staff or known to be a part of. But even just the newsletter that comes out every month, it's full of great resources, full of great trainings. I've put myself through a lot of them and the staff. And I mean, anything like that, it makes us better as educators. It makes our school better for our kids. And I'm thrilled with it.
That's awesome. And it's good to hear that you actually like use the resources in the newsletter. So that's really good.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you received adequate support? And did you feel like you needed more of anything?
I felt like I had the best support from our district person, Melinda Norman. Um, I will be honest, when we were first accepted as a pilot school and the live finder was sent to me, I was extremely overwhelmed with it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a lot. And I printed everything out from it, which was a lot. I read it all, which was a lot. And I was just like, how are we ever going to do this? So I felt better supported when I worked with our district person because she was able to condense all that information down for me. So I wasn't like swimming in it. And she was like, Melissa, I know you're already doing a lot of this. So we would go through those quarterly checklists together. And I was like, okay, we are doing this. Good. Because I just was a little mind blown when I saw all of that. So, support wise, I felt like the district level, that was fantastic support. Um, it was a little overwhelming from the top of the program down, but I also recognize it's a huge initiative and it was a lot of information to get out to everybody.
So how would you have liked to what would have been a better way to receive that information if you could have your ideal scenario?
Hmm. Um, well, I think it was, difficult for me to recognize a lot of the acronyms like SAP and education does it too. We have all of our own little, alphabet soup, you know, abbreviations for everything. Um, maybe if that was presented maybe in chunks, I don't know. Some people like to have it all at once. Um, I really appreciated the checklist every quarter once I understood, "Oh, we are doing this." Um, but it was a lot. So I don't know if they would like to do trainings throughout the year and meetings like through Zoom that they could go over those chunks of information with the school SAP team so they can maybe digest that a little bit easier. Um, some of my folks on the committee had told me the other day, I'm still a little confused what all the terms mean, but I know what we're doing, but I get a little confused with all the terms. And I was like, well, I kind of do too, but I think it's because that's not been my area. Mental health and all that has not been my area that I've spent my career in. So, the acronyms I kind of swim in a little bit.
Yeah, so definitely breaking it down maybe more to like layman's terms for people that aren't in that field
Mhm.
could be beneficial. And group meetings where people can actually like ask questions as
Yeah.
like going through it. Yeah, would maybe be beneficial. Okay, that sounds good. And how has staff wellness been brought up throughout the past year?
I have to say, I felt like that was probably the strongest, draw for me to be an OSWI, because, well, last year I applied for every single social emotional learning grant that came across my desk, and as fate would have it, I was awarded every single one, and I was like, "That never happens." So, we had We've had, SEL programs that we've been awarded, curriculum or grants to that are in different stages, like some are just 1 year, some are 3 years, and some we did different trainings for, so there was a lot of SEL, resources available this year. But this one is the only one that also focused on staff wellness because that always gets missed. And that to me was the most important part of this program because I have watched my staff the last 3 years go through a lot. I've taught online. I taught for an online school for 3 years. So when the governor closed the state of Ohio and they said you're going to have to go online and everyone was losing their mind, I was over here going, "Oh, it'll be fine. I've done it. I'll show you guys how to do it." And I was like, "It's going to be cool. Well, I'm gonna train you. We're going to come in for 1 day training and you're going to be pros at this." And I've done it. And I was able to do that, but my staff had that look, like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna die." Um, so they had to have almost a complete shift in everything that they had learned of how to be a teacher. That is not easy for people. That is not easy for people to wrap their head around and to do it in a 3-week time span, because that's what we had during the shutdown of everything. So they went from that to not knowing that whole summer if we would even get to come back face to face for last school year. And they were asking me every week, "Are we coming back face to face?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. The governor hasn't said, just be prepared. You might want to get back on Zoom and practice at home and, be ready." So then we knew school would open last year, but we are going to come in with all the masking and all the protocols. So they had to shift again. Like, as a preschool teacher, how do you keep your kids 3 feet apart? You don't. You just mask up and pray, how do and how to get into that. So the stress level that on my staff coming through that has been extremely high. I've had a couple staff, they left the field of teaching after that. They said, "I can't do this anymore. I just can't. I don't want to lose our staff. They are amazing. If you don't have good dedicated staff, you do not have a successful school for your kids." So this program, that was a big focus. And that's what drew me to it because I see that deficit and I see our staff. They went from everyone saying teachers are superheroes, teachers need a cape, to this year, another shift in how a school year was where we start back with masks, but it's almost normal. And everyone's so angry. And the kids are all behind, but for some reason now it's a teacher's fault. And people have kind of forgotten how to be polite and mannerly and how to actually speak to human beings because they haven't been around human beings. And that stress level, again, is probably higher than ever in our teaching staff because they've not, some of them have never had parents talk to them the way that they were talked to this year. And they needed that support from us. So that's a long answer to get to what did we do to support our staff? Well, our wonderful receptionist and our school nurse are on our committee, and they said, "Miss Boggs, we want to be in charge of staff wellness." I said, "That's great. What are we going to do?" So they started off, they had a health fair, and we said every staff is going to this health fair. We'll take turns. One of our local hospitals came in, they sat up in our gym. They had all kinds of stuff. They even had like bananas and smoothies and all this stuff. And we had staff that they didn't want to participate. So the administrative staff, we went to their rooms and we said, "Hey, we're going to watch your class. Go down to the health fair. You can be down there up to an hour if you need to." "You're going to watch my kids for an hour?" "Yes, we will." So we as an administrative staff said, "This is important to us that you go and have this time. Go get a smoothie, go get your blood pressure checked, go get a free banana, get the goodie bag they brought you." And we had giveaways. You could get a blender, you could get a juicer, all this stuff. And we gave away gift cards to a local healthy smoothie store that's here in town. So I had a lot of staff mention that to me. That really meant something to me that my administrators came down and said, "We really want you to go do this. We want you to go down and have this time to make sure that you're healthy." And instead of administrators just sitting in our office and not not dedicating ourselves to them. So we did that. Our staff wellness team talked to the staff and they said they really miss being able to have like potlucks together. So twice a month, we had salad day and we have two buildings. So the first part of the month, the pre-K through grade 3 team, it was their job to bring all the salad fixings and share with everybody. The second half of the month, it was the grade 4 through 12 team. And everyone got to be a part of that. We didn't all have the same lunch schedule, but it was nice. We didn't have to pack our lunch. We didn't have to order out. It was there. That was probably one of the most popular things. And then we had different hot lunch days that the teachers did. Um, they really like food. So
Yeah, I think everyone likes food. Food is always a good
it
buy-in.
was good. Um, that just things like that to let them know that we really appreciated them. We made sure as administrators in this committee that once a month we would make sure we put like a really nice note in their mailbox. It's handwritten. We really appreciate what you're doing here. Um, how can we reach out to you? We got a lot of resources to them about their own mental health and their own physical health. The day we had mental health first aid training, we had not had that on the calendar. It was brought to us about a month ahead of time. So we actually closed school down a day and we had our mental health first aid training and we were able to everyone have lunch together. Everyone. That doesn't happen. And that was, again, it was food, but it was fellowship. And that they really appreciated, and they said, "We really needed that. We needed to get together and just be able to see each other and talk and not be yelling at kids and not just have 20 minutes to eat."
Yes, and it's also that,
Yeah.
you know how they always talk about families sit in front of the TV and eat now instead of sitting at a table and actually communicating with one another. It's the same thing, with your staff at work. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So, we also developed a teacher chat that, everyone's a part of, and it's just so we can share stupid teacher memes, things that make us laugh. And so they share on that all the time. And, it lightens the day and it gives us a laugh during stressful times. And it's kind of brought us together even digitally. So I appreciate it. Sometimes I get annoyed when they're sending the dumb cat videos through, but then I'll be like, yeah, that's kind of funny. I see, why they do that. And um, yeah, it's been good. So looking into next year, there's a lot I'd like to see us be able to do. We'd love to have a staff retreat. Um, just they need to get together too in a way that's positive and uplifting to them. And I really think if we had not done those things this year, we could have really lost some people because they were so stressed out.
And it's also, just good to be around people and not be talking about what's going wrong as well. Be able to sit with someone that you care about, that you know, and just have fun for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 20 minutes, however long you can get, rather than be like, okay, this is the problem this week,
Yeah.
So
And another thing we really tried to focus on was giving our staff um, opportunities to, I hate to come back to finances, but when you're in education, you just don't make a lot of money. It's just how it is. So we were able to write some grants this year that focused on stipends for our staff. So we had some trainings that we thought were really important for our staff to have, and we were able to pay them well to do that. And that's not something that always happens here. They were really thankful for that. They were like, "Wow, Miss Boggs, you took the time, you wrote a grant so I could get this." And I said, "Yeah, I did." And I really tried to focus on how can we make life better here for our staff because most non-public private schools, they don't make the money that they make in a public school, but it's a great place to work. I mean, that's what everyone tells me. This is the best place I've ever worked. I don't make anything, but I love it here. And I'm like, it is a great place to work. We've worked hard to make that a great place for you to work. We always want our people to come in and know they care about me. I matter to them. This person loves me. Um, they're going to support me professionally. They're going to support me spiritually. They're going to support me. If, well, that's another thing I've seen. And being a Christian school, of course, we're able to talk about faith, but in our teacher chat, there's a lot of times our staff will put through there. I really need you guys to pray for me. My kids are sick, or we're having this situation in our family, and I think that speaks a lot to how close they feel as a staff and how much they know they're cared for, that they can share things like that. And you'll see the staff start answering, "I'm praying for you right now. Please let us know that you're okay." And they do support each other. And I love that. I love that about our school.
And having that system where you can actually check in on each other is good too. Honestly, your response to this question is probably the most in depth that we've gotten. I feel like a lot of people let the staff wellness fall to the wayside, and that's never. If you're the person protecting and guiding and counseling these kids, and no one is there to protect and guide and counsel you, it always negatively impacts down the line. So I'm really glad that y'all were able to really focus on this and do new things that positively benefited not only your staff, but your kids in the long run.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to mention to you that I had received all these grants for SEL and
Mhm.
we implemented them, but none of them focus on the staff. They're just on the kids. Well, I know our kids coming out of, I know our kids in normal everyday life have a lot of challenges. Coming out of the pandemic, immense challenges, but nothing focuses on the staff. And you can't pour out of an empty cup. So that was my number one draw to even apply to OSWI, because I saw that deficit here. We need to provide our staff with support that's more than just, "Hey, have a good day today." It needs to be the whole person. They need mental health help. They need substance abuse prevention and intervention. They need to know I come to work and these people, they support me. They support my family. They support me on a level that's more than just a surface level. And I feel like we've done a good job with that, but there's more we can do. And I want to see us do more, because I feel like a staff that feels supported and appreciated, they work harder for your facility. They give more. They are able to feel good about the work they do. And that's important to me as a principal, that my staff feel good about the work they do here. Hey, you may not make any money, but you're sometimes that's not a driving factor for people, money. Sometimes it's, I need to feel like I made a difference today and I was appreciated. And I think as school leaders, that's a really big responsibility for us, that our staff know these people care about me and they support me and they want to see me grow professionally and on a personal level and be the best I can be. Because when they're the best they can be, our kids get the best. And that means our school can be the best. And our community is what is going to be benefiting from that. And in our case, 8 counties are going to benefit from that, and 2 states. And, I think we need to be on board with that. Every school needs to be on board with that. Because if you have great teachers that are pouring into your kids, it makes your community strong and it will benefit everybody around you.
For sure. And Melissa, I would like to say thank you on behalf of OSWI. We're so grateful and appreciative that you took the time to do this interview with us today. And we really look forward to continuing the expansion of the SAP program with contributions from people like you, as these conversations are necessary for the growth and evolution of this. And we can't do that without your feedback. So, again, thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. It's nice to meet you, Ivory.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Ivy Lloyd, and today we are working with the Ohio School Wellness Initiative. I have the pleasure of speaking with Emily Ryan, the school counselor for Revere High School. Thank you so much for joining us today, Emily.
Thank you, Ivory. Thank you very much for having me.
So, Emily, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for everyone and tell us a little bit about your school and your history with education?
So thank you once again, Ivory. My name is Emily Ryan, and I am a high school counselor in my 13th year as a school counselor. I've mainly worked in the high school setting as a school counselor. This is my third year here at Revere High School. I was previously at Nordonia High School prior to coming to Revere. All Northeast Ohio school systems. I'm born and raised here as well. Went to the University of Akron for both my psychology degree for my bachelor's, and then my master's degree is in school counseling as well as private counseling, um, master's degree in education. The high school that I'm currently at in the district is, a typical suburban, a little tiny bit rural community. In our building itself in the high school, we have close to maybe 830 some students. It is growing, definitely. Probably within the next 3 years, there'll probably be more, close to like 1,000, a little bit over 1,000 students. It is a wonderful place to be. Our students are absolutely phenomenal. Our staff work very hard every single day to make sure that our kids, are getting what they need.
Awesome. Thank you for all of that. So, what we're here to talk about today is the SAP program, and SAP stands for Student Assistance Program. So, from your perspective, as someone who has initiated a SAP in your school, can you tell us what SAP is and how it affects your school?
Yeah. So our student assistance program, this was our first real launch at an actual official program, this school year. We have the whole RTI program in place. We have our tiers, in place already. We have support systems in place for our students, but we didn't really have at the high school, we don't have like team time set aside for our teachers like maybe some of our younger levels do in our other buildings. So having an actual SAP team was really important to kind of getting the tiers, of the RTI process really formatted and in an actual more official way. So through, the OS IW program, which very, very fortunate that we were able to be part of that. I was able to develop a team. My team consisted of myself, one of our actual RTI staff members, Mrs. Beth D'Amico, a custodian, our head custodian, Paul Warnock, and our school psych, Bob Richardson. So kind of cross categorical. A little bit there. We would meet every other week after school. We developed a student assistant program, actual like questionnaire on a Google form that we sent out to teachers frequently. So each teacher had, I shouldn't say just teachers, all staff in our building had access to this form. It was a Google form, and they would fill it out with the questions that we asked about what their concerns were for that student, whether it was social emotional, academic, um, basically any concerns that they were seeing for that student, what kind of interventions they were already putting in place for that student. Then we would meet together as a team after school on a specific time and date, which is usually Wednesdays after school. And we would talk about that student. We would talk about if we knew that student, if that student was already getting services from us. And then we would start the interview process ourselves of kind of gathering more data about that student by talking to the teachers, talking to the parents, talking to the student. And we'd formulate plans. So that's why we met so frequently was every other week because this took time to gather data.
For sure, and it totally makes sense.
Mhm.
So, you just described your team. So, how did you decide who should be on your student assistance team? And did you have to work hard to recruit, or were they very willing to participate?
Well, the recruitment process is always challenging because time is precious. And, you know, it's not that once the clock ends, teachers are done or staff are done, because that's not the case. It's actually the opposite. It's teachers and staff were so involved here already that it was a bit of a challenge. Um, but I already had relationships built as a school counselor. You have to have a relationship with everybody. And I already had relationships built and I already knew the people that, you know, I felt like I really wanted to be part of my team. There were a few people that couldn't join that I really wanted to be part of this because they were coaching or because they were, running an after school group, which I mean, I do as well. But I really believed in this program and I always have. When in prior districts, I was part of student assistance program. We ran a different model. It was through the Masonic model. The Freemasons have a whole RTI model and system that they run. And I was trained in that years ago. So I really believed in the power of a STAT program. So when I was looking for people, I was looking for people that knew students across the board. It wasn't just one area where, it was someone just teaching, honors or AP. I really felt like I needed some people that were all over the place. And also having a head custodian on my team was really awesome because they are the ears and eyes of our building. So that was having Paul on our team was incredibly incredibly important.
Yeah, and I was gonna say you're probably the first school that actually said that they had like I've heard people say they had office staff on their team and things like that, but you're the first school that I've heard say that they had a custodian on their team. But it makes sense because people like kind of are like, working in the background and the kids might be saying or doing something that they wouldn't normally do in front of a teacher. So they have that, yeah, they have that insight. It was like, hey, I saw so and so doing this, or, they were, sitting alone by themselves, like getting lunch or so on. Yeah. So I
And
think
Paul
that's
was also a bus driver. Um, he he currently doesn't drive the bus right now, but he was a bus driver, so he knew a lot of the kids that are in high school now when they were younger. And so he knows some of their family stories just from picking them up or dropping them off at homes. I mean, they really our support staff are imperative to how a school functions and runs.
yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that you guys were able to include them in that. Um,
Absolutely.
so do you have any tips for schools just getting into the program on how to build their student assistance teams?
I think just continuing to remind staff that it's there. I would send out, silly little emails, honestly, monthly with like just a link to the form, just like, hey, like the subject would read, just to capture their attention so they wouldn't be like, oh, another email from Emily Ryan. Like things like, let us help you, that sort of thing. And we actually also incorporated staff wellness into what we were doing because it wasn't just the student assistance program, but we also worked with our PTSA on making sure that we provided staff wellness. And what we did was we actually hired out side of our district. We hired she's kind of like a wellness coach, yoga person that, and this is for the whole district, anyone could join. She would come into the building. Her name is Jen Hayes, and she's phenomenal. She would come into the building after school. I apologize, the bell. She would come into the school and she would work with staff on just kind of mindfulness techniques. She'd get down and do yoga and breathing, and she'd have staff journal. Wasn't a large group because, like I said, outside school commitments, are tough outside of the school day. And she would work with them a few times a month. And she did that last year as well. That was a program that continued on to this year. But I really wanted to emphasize that for teachers and or for staff. And she's fabulous. And I hope that we continue to run those staff wellness programs as well.
Yeah, and making sure that your team has a system or something that they can go and do to relax and release the stress of the day or it's hard to support people when you're also stressed. So it's
Correct.
really good that you guys have,
Yep.
even if it's a physical class or just journaling or, whatever technique it is, to
Yes.
help for sure.
Agreed.
Many groups are worried about the time commitment involved in executing an effective SAP. Can you speak on how this was addressed with you and your colleagues?
Well, we utilize some of the funding to pay for our time, right? Because people want, there's all people, there's, you have to have incentive, right? We in education give up so much of our time. And I'm not saying that we're all about money, but it does help. It does help to have some incentive for your time outside of the day that you could be with your family or that you can be doing with your organizations or your clubs or things like that. And so we did utilize some of those funding to pay for the staffing of SAP. And and that was an incentive. Not a ton, but I mean it was better than nothing. So um I would say try to set some funding aside, but you got to have people believe, you got to have people buy into what you're selling, right? And I think one of the ways that, you do that is you just talk about it to people. You talk about, well, this is where that student started who maybe was referred, and this is where they're at. And if you're not seeing any progress still, even with the referral, then maybe we need to look differently and go, maybe that's talking tier, the highest tier, baby. Maybe we need to go jump up to that level at that point, but they wouldn't have gotten to that point if we wouldn't have referred them. So I think it's all about buy-in. And I think it's also about talking with your administrators about it as well. I had several conversations throughout the year. There wasn't anything that I did that I wasn't including my building administration as well as my central administration about what was going on. My central administrators were part of making sure that they checked off and made sure that my forms were, up to their standards and what they wanted to see. So I also had buy-in from that.
That's awesome. I really like that. Like buy-in is super important. If people can see that it does have a positive effect, um, they're more willing to be like, okay, I can commit some time to this. And you guys have quite a few students, much more than some of the other schools that I've talked to. So I can definitely see how, you know, that on top of all these kids, on top of, you know, whatever school sports and so on and so forth that's going on.
Yeah.
It can be a lot. I think that definitely the money incentive is always helpful. Like even when I was, working at an after school program, they were like, "Hey, you want to do this other stuff?" I was like, "No, I'm
Right.
tired."
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And I just unfortunately in education, for the most part, people who start education are very giving, generous people, right? And we're not the type of people that are going to be like saying no, even if it's, you know, time that we are giving that we're not necessarily getting monetarily compensated for, which they could even increase the burnout even more. So I think that, I'm not saying, or these greedy people, even talking about it sometimes makes people feel uncomfortable. But I think you gotta show people that there is incentive to their work, that that their work is valued. So because it is work. It is work. And it is work outside of what I guess would be deemed the normal hours. So
Yeah, and especially if you have to go home to your own kids or anything like that, that's a whole nother level of exhaustion. So what strategies have you found to be helpful for engaging students and caregivers into the program?
honestly, I think for the most part, by the time that I reach out to them or someone else from my team reaches out to them, they're like, thank you. They already feel like they were they were needing that assistance, that help. So for me, it never has been an issue of getting them to buy in, to what I was trying to, provide for them or help them out with. They were like, "Oh, yeah, thank you." Like, so I've been very fortunate in that aspect, whether it was here in this district or at my previous district. For the most part, people have been incredibly open to receiving support and help. Now, do they necessarily always follow up on suggestions or referrals or things like that? Not necessarily. Doesn't mean that you stop. It takes people several times to, remember things. It takes people several times to want to follow up and do things. So, and I think once the students and the parents also saw the results of some of the supports that we put in place, whether that was after school tutoring, after school support groups, during the day support groups, during the day support time or tutoring or academic assistance, or one-on-one time with a coach that we connected them with. I think once they started to see the benefits of that, then that really helped them. And it also helped to build a different relationship between them and their teachers.
Oh, that's good to hear. Um, it's really good that they have like someone in particular they can go and talk to about like the process, as well as it sounds like you guys have a very individualized approach to each student. And so, how did you guys get to that point? Like, how did you decide and create a system that allowed you to individualize how you talk to each student and what you recommended for each student?
Well, I think that just happened organically when we received the referrals. So when we would get the Google Doc for each kid, I mean, you could easily, format the Google Doc, into an Excel spreadsheet where, it gives you all of the questions and then all the answers to the kids. So that happened organically where we were like, okay, each kid has clearly got different things going on. There may be, a common denominator of one teacher who maybe is seeing struggles with a few different kids. So maybe we need to go and observe that classroom and see what's going on with, the multiple kids or just the single kids. I think that each kid, especially at the high school level, and I can't speak for the lower levels, but especially at the high school level, they're young adults. So they've got bigger kid problems, or bigger kid things that they're working through. So, um, you you almost have to do it, individually, because otherwise you're not going to get to the necessarily the heart of what is overall, going on with that kid.
For sure. So, what tips do you have for working with community partners? I think you said you had a couple of community partners, right?
We do. So, um, I mean, just invite them in, just being transparent on exactly what you're doing and what you're trying to develop, I think is incredibly important. I think anytime you tell the PTSA or or the central office, hey, this is just a program to support kids and help them out, they're like, okay, great. But I think just being transparent with what exactly you're trying to do is really important in communicating it. And also like there were a lot of confidential things that we spoke about within our inner circle of the SAP program, but and they understood that. Like our PTSA and our central office is different because, they could know things about, confidentiality and stuff for our kids. Um, but like when it comes to like parents or bringing in someone from the outside, like with the yoga and the mindfulness stuff, I think, that they just get it that you're just really your intentions are just good and that you're just trying to provide more supports for the kids. So, but communicating and being transparent, I think is really important.
Sure. Um, so many schools are sharing that partnering with mental health programs has been easier than integrating, say, substance abuse or intervention programs. Can you share your successes or recommendations for those areas?
So this year was our first year that we actually partnered with a local agency out of Akron called Greenleaf. and Greenleaf is phenomenal. They bring in actual mental health counselors into our building. They do bill through insurance. So one-on-one sessions with our students are billed through our students' insurance programs. I know that they do have like assistance programs for students who maybe don't have insurance or who are working through, just, pay wise with them. And they also get into the classroom and with us, and they do suicide prevention programs. They've done that for about 3 to 4 years now in our district, but we've really expanded it now to grades 6 through 12, where every sixth grader through 12th grade receives a full, suicide prevention presentation, which covers a few days. And then the school counselors on staff are, there to intervene as needed. But I think without the community surrounding us, I think we would really struggle if we did not utilize those resources. And I think the reason why we'd struggle is there's just not enough of us. Um, there's 3 counselors here just in my building, and we have about 300, kids on our caseload, and that's going to keep growing. And we don't just see kids, obviously, for academic concerns. We're seeing social emotional, career stuff, all of that. And I just think that that's a common trend across the board. I know it is. So we need to utilize and rely on our community agencies and supports systems so that we can make sure that all of our kids, as many as we possibly can, are being seen and heard.
For sure. Um, so as summer is approaching, we would like to begin strategizing on how to reach a greater audience. And I broke down those audiences into 3 main categories. So the first category I wanted to talk about was people in the education system. So educators, school board members, and administrators. Do you have any ideas on strategies on how to reach that audience?
For the summertime.
Well, we're strategizing during the summer to implement for the school year.
So, like, I think one of my biggest things, like I said, was just communicating what we were doing.
Mhm.
And like I said, I would have things that I would just do just because I think it's part of my role, but also part of just overall wellness. I would do wellness Wednesdays with my students and my staff, and it was just like a positive message every Wednesday that I sent out, honestly, to the whole district. Um, you know, I I feel like our lower levels, like I said, are very fortunate that they have the time in their days, like built in where they have team time, where they already have SAT programs already built into their days, whereas we didn't. But um making sure that you're presenting to central administration so that they can therefore tell the board what's going on and what you're doing. And I think just honestly, like talking to your PTSA too, which not a lot of folks like to do, but without PTSA, a lot of things don't happen, especially with, community and parental support. So I think just keeping an open mind, and putting yourself out there and letting people know what you're doing, I think is important.
For sure. And our second group we're going to talk about is social workers, counselors, school psychologists, and school nurses.
hmm
Um,
Um,
how how would you suggest strategizing on reaching those groups?
well, number one, they're already reached. um, People, they're typically already bombarded. So I don't even know if it's necessarily reaching them or if it's more just checking in with them to say, hey, how can we work together collaboratively on this? Because I am one of those people. And I work very collaboratively with my school nurse, with my school psych. Um, Bonnie Simonelli, she works in all of our buildings. She does have a social worker license. She um, there isn't a day that goes by where I'm not talking with her and we're not collaborating and we're not trying to figure things out together. So I definitely think, when you talk to someone in my type of role or in the other roles that we just mentioned, I think when you come at them as like, hey, this isn't just, I'm just throwing this problem on you, fix it. It's more like, hey, here's the situation. Let's work together on problem solving this. It's going to go a lot smoother and it's going to hopefully have less burnout.
Yeah, making sure they have that sense of team work and doing it together and not just, oh, hey, here's more stuff for you to do.
Correct.
um, so our last group we're going to talk about is transportation staff and food service providers. And I guess for you guys, I'll throw in janitorial staff as well, since yeah.
Yes. So it's interesting because I did get some referrals from our food staff, our cafeteria, our kitchen staff. And I actually, just because I don't pack a lunch because I don't have time, because I have two little kids and I'm packing their lunch, I go down every single day and I actually don't go through the lines. I go back through the kitchen and I check in with them because a lot of times our kitchen staff are also our bus drivers. We're in a district where they're allowed to do both. They have the opportunity to do both. And so they see kids, picking up from their home and then they see them, their meals and things like that as well. So they have referred other kids as well. I think when you send out your message of whether, how you're going to ask for student referrals, I think it's incredibly important to make sure that you're not just sending it to teaching staff, that you're sending that message, your communication to all staff, because they read them. They do read the messages. I know they did because they sent me referrals, and then I would have an opportunity to go talk with them in person about what they're seeing.
So basically just making sure that it's known, reaching out and going in and having personal conversations with them. I like that you have the
Absolutely.
yeah, I like that you go down and actually talk to them, see how their day is going, and then, ask them questions about their referrals and things
That's
like
my favorite part of my days.
that. Okay. So last three questions. What resources were helpful during the past year that you received from OSWI, and what was beneficial from the support?
The newsletters were incredibly beneficial to me. I actually utilized a lot of the resources where they had the student corners, on the newsletter, where they would give like actual, like coping strategies. In fact, is this part of it? Maybe no. I actually would post them throughout our bulletins in our buildings or in our building, specifically stuff for kids. Like if you're angry, do this or whatnot. Also, there's a training, what's it called? Hold on, that I'm very, very interested in, incorporating that into our SEL. It's the SSISCIP T2 Social Emotional Health Improvement Program. I'm very interested. Have you heard of that?
Not me personally, no.
Well, I found out about it through the newsletter, and we're looking to really update our social emotional, like actual lessons in the classroom. In the high school, we don't have the opportunity to go into the classrooms a lot, and that's not good. We need to be able to do that. So that is something that I've already put on our calendar for next year, like with our administrators and the teaching staff to get into the classrooms and actually do social emotional learning. So the younger grades, they actually have it built into their like specials or whatever. We don't have that and we really need to. So I'm going to be utilizing this program that I found out through the actual newsletter, that's I'm going to utilize their curriculum for that.
That's awesome.
Yep.
And do you feel like you received adequate support, and were there any barriers that you face like with asking questions or needing certain things?
From OSWI?
Yes, from OSWI.
Oh, not at all. If I needed anything, I feel like I could have gotten whatever I needed. I think maybe the barrier is time. Time. That's the barrier. But I think for the time that we have and the you know resources that we have, I think that we did the best job we could.
Okay, awesome. And so last but not least, how has staff wellness been brought up in the past year? And what was beneficial and what do you feel like still needs to be done?
Well, I still think we need to keep the momentum with staff wellness. I think, when I think of wellness, I mean, everyone, the biggest catchphrase was like self-care and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, yeah, but how do we have self-care if we don't have time for self-care? So I think one of the biggest things that we actually, my district incorporated one mental health day last year that our board of education gave to our staff, which I thought was wonderful. We didn't do that this year, but I felt like that was amazing. That it was like it's not a sick day. It's not you don't have to use personal time. It's literally the whole district is taking a day, not penalized, to do whatever you want to do. Um, I think that's great. I think it's important to continue that type of thinking. Um, I think it's important to continue to provide the programs that we have, especially with the yoga and the mindfulness journaling. I think that even if we're not getting a large crowd, the message is still out there that, there are people that care. There are people that want to see our staff do well because then that relates to student wellness and growth. So I think that the momentum of that just needs to continue. Um, but this is a bigger picture question, right? I mean, there also needs to be big conversations at the government level about staffing in schools and supports that are given to staff, especially, our teachers. So, um, but there's only so much that we can do. So I think that just continuing the message that we have, and I think it will.
Well, awesome. Well, Emily, I would like to say thank you on behalf of OSWI. We are so grateful and appreciative that you took the time to do this with us today. Conversations like this are necessary for the growth and the evolution of this program, and we really appreciate your feedback. So thank you once again.
All right, Ivory. Thank you so much. You take care.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Ivy Lloyd, and today we are working with the Ohio School Wellness Initiative. I have the pleasure of speaking with Brenda Huth, the head of St. Joseph Montessori School. Thank you so much for joining us today, Brenda.
Thanks for having me.
So, Brenda, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for everyone and tell us a little bit about your school and your history with education?
Sure. I'm Brenda Huth. I'm the head of school at St. Joseph's Montessori School here in Columbus. We're in downtown Columbus in Italian Village, the short north. I have been an educator for, 32 years, a Montessorian for 30 of that. I have a background in special education. I have a K through 12 license in the state of Indiana. I also have another undergraduate degree in early childhood. So I got my Montessori start in actually public schools. The district that I worked for in Indiana was starting a Montessori magnet program. I was part of the original staff there that started that school. And the rest is history. I became a curriculum director and then director of student services for a large private school in Indiana, infant through high school, helped start the high school program there and then knew that if I didn't become a head of school soon, I was going to get too old. I wouldn't want to do it. So I interviewed all over the country and chose Columbus. My son at the time was at the University of Dayton, and Columbus is a very far from my hometown. So here I am. St. Joseph's has a wonderful history. The school has been here for 54 years, founded by a sister, Sister Ann McCarrick, who went on to be a living legacy for the American Montessori Society. We are not a diocesan school. We are actually affiliated with the Diocese of Columbus, and we rent our space here in the Short North. We have toddlers, 18-month-olds through 8th years here. Our population this year was 242. Next year we'll be at 271. So we continue to grow and expand. We just added a second toddler environment. I just solidified that brand new team, so I'm very excited about that. And we became an OSWI pilot school. I was very excited to bring that social and emotional part to our not only our students but also our faculty. So thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Very welcome, and thank you for sharing. So, what we're here to talk about is the SAP program, and SAP stands for Student Assistance Program. So, from your perspective as someone who has initiated a SAP program in your school, can you tell us what SAP is and how it affects your school?
I think for me, the biggest part is identifying those students who have need, whether it be social and emotional need or academic need, which sometimes is connected, right? So students who oftentimes struggle academically also lack confidence, and sometimes those EF skills. Things like organization, time management, those all go hand in hand to me. So I think having a program in place where we teachers feel comfortable in knowing, oh my gosh, I have this student in my classroom. What do I do? What do I do with this child? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? What's going to be the outcomes? What are the learner outcomes going to be? And how do I make that happen? And how do I get from point A to point B? So that is the important piece for me to make sure that faculty feels comfortable, and then also parents. So we do very much do sort of a wraparound process here where it really involves every stakeholder in that child's education, making sure that we get input from everyone is really important. So, being an OSWI pilot school really helped us solidify that, obtain the faculty that we needed, put the protocols into place, and I really feel good about it. We really have it up and running.
That's amazing. So, as far as your team goes, how did you decide who should be on your student assistance team? And did you have to work hard to recruit people, or were they very willing to participate?
They're Montessorians, so they're a little different anyway. Different good. Some people would say weird, but we're not really. I'm not a hippie, I swear. But I really didn't have a hard time. And I have a student services manager, and she's wonderful. The staff loves her. And so having her on the team, obviously that's what she does, a big part of what she does. So I think it was very easy. I just put it out there. I didn't really go to specific people. I sort of had in mind when we were awarded this pilot, I sort of had in mind who would step up. But I was actually surprised. I had some surprises. I had some teachers, especially for the faculty side of it. I put it out there as a two pillar. This we're going to do for students, but we're also going to do this for faculty. So it was interesting. I had some surprises on the faculty pillar, the teachers that stepped up to help implement.
Right. Okay. So, do you have any tips for people that or for schools that are just getting into the program on how to build their team?
I got lucky because we found, a really great curriculum. It's called Frenzy. It's very biblical based. It very much fits our mission. It's very Montessori aligned. And so once we knew that we were going to use that, and I worked with my student services manager to select that, once I knew that we were going to use that, I put it out there, let people take a look at it, and then people stepped up to help implement that. So it was almost like I put that first, and then I had buy-in for that, and then it was easy. So maybe making sure that you know what you're gonna do, if that makes sense, before you put it out there.
Yeah, kind of having a plan in place,
Correct.
so you can kind of map it out for people, and so when they come in, they're not confused or thinking it's going to be something else than it actually is.
Or having it be so overwhelming, because I think sometimes teachers are like, "Hey, I'm really busy," and they are, right? We're all busy. So I think if you make it just like, "What are we gonna do?" And it's just really broad, that scares people. Where if you say, "This is what we've selected. Let's take a look at this. What parts do you think we can implement? How can we implement it?" It gives sort of more of a vision and a goal, and then you can set those steps along the way. So that's kind of how we approached it, rather than just making it so broad that people were overwhelmed.
Right, and that makes sense. So many groups are worried about the time commitment involved in executing an effective SAP program. Can you speak on this and how you and your colleagues have addressed that need?
We a lot our faculty meetings are really professional development driven. We don't do I don't do like logistical faculty meetings. I put that out in faculty notes. I figure people can read an email, right? I don't need to sit down and say, okay, on Tuesday we're gonna have a fire drill. Like we just don't conduct our faculty meetings like that. So we set aside a lot of time to implement our new curriculum, to implement our student services protocol, really go through things with teachers, forms. How do I fill this out? What's the first thing I do? And so we spent a lot of professional development time. Um, and our teachers are contracted every Wednesday for a faculty meeting. And that's what we use our time for. So time really wasn't a big factor for us. A lot of people say that, "Oh, this is so time." Um, I guess it's how you use your scheduled time in your meetings, and that's really important to me. I don't wanna waste teachers' time.
Right. And it's about using the time you have effectively as well and staying on topic and actually talking about the things you're supposed to talk about.
That's exactly right. And not using it for just things that people could read anyway.
Completely understand. So what strategies have you found for helping to engage students and caregivers in the program?
So our parents are always invited to, be in if it's a student support team meeting. Let's say a student needs support in social and emotional development, and we've implemented some strategies, we've set some goals. We always have parents come. We invite the classroom teachers. I usually set in on meetings. If I can't, then it's my support manager. And we're a smaller school. I realize people who have schools of 700 students, they can't sit in on all those meetings. But I know our students so well. I'm in and out of classrooms all the time. I feel like I'm able to add some value to those meetings. But parents are always invited. Specialists, our PE teacher, our art teacher, our music teacher, band, any of those teachers that want to sit in on those meetings can. Any caregiver, we've had even grandparents sit in on meetings. And so we invite whomever the parent would like to have. And then as far as our curriculum goes, our new adopted SEL curriculum, we put that in newsletters. So we inform parents like what's the direct aim of what we're doing in this lesson. And we put that out there in newsletters and parent communication so that parents can implement some of that at home. And we know you're working on this at school. And there's a catchphrase that goes with the curriculum. So one of the catchphrases is teamwork makes the dream work, right? So we post that around the school. Teachers put that in their newsletters, and then parents know at least what's our catchphrase that goes with our SEL curriculum.
Right. And it's also good to inform the parents so that they can be a participating part of the process. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, I really like the newsletter idea. That's great.
Well,
Um,
and we're a private school, so our parents, and not that parents in public schools don't. I mean, I'm my heart's in, I was a public school teacher for years, so parents want to be informed, right? And so we do a Friday newsletter. I do a Friday note, and then on the off weeks that the teachers don't, they do every other week. We have specialists that have a newsletter that goes out. So there's just this constant flow of communication back and forth. And if everyone's using the same phrases and gleaning from the same curriculum, then parents are hearing it over and over and over again.
right. And that's good to instill that consistency.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
And what are some ways you're able to ensure that the plans you create for your students are individualized and based on their needs and not just a cookie cutter one size fits all approach?
So we have, our student support team process is like a tier two. So, you've got that that tier one, those kiddos have IEPs, and they've been through a full ETR assessment. We've got those tier two kiddos that either have academic needs or social emotional needs or behavioral needs, or both. Some of our kids have action plans that are both. So it's almost like a 504, but it's our interior process. So we revisit those action plans every 30 school days. And again, we're a smaller school, so we can do that. We have about 40 kiddos who are on action plans. We write goals and we set strategies that are then implemented within the classroom. Our student support manager goes in, makes sure that there's fidelity to those plans, or if teachers have any questions about the plans. And it could be everything from pencil grip. I mean, that's a pretty simple one, right? All the way to, we had a couple kiddos this year who really had some self harming behavior. And they were on a more extensive, behavioral plan, working with outside agencies. We have Nationwide Children's Hospital right here in Columbus. That's amazing. Their behavioral health for children is outstanding. So inviting those counselors that are working with that particular student to sit in on those action plan meetings. And we revisit those every 30 days. And parents are involved in that as well. So that's our interior process. And out of that comes an actual written action plan.
Right. Okay. And that sounds really good as far as like being able to individualize and make sure each student gets exactly what they need.
That's right.
So, what tips do you have for working with community partners, as you said before?
Yeah, we did signs of suicide this year, with Nationwide. We're just very fortunate. I mean, it's just up the street. And we have several parents here that are in the medical field, and we've just made those connections. We also have a separate list of, counselors that we've used or that we're familiar with, school psychs that we've used that we're familiar with, outside agencies, and we keep that list, and we're not afraid to, share that with parents. Again, in a private setting, it's a little bit different. We do have a school counselor. She's only here once a week. But we have a 5-day a week nurse. So if we feel like it's something like, the child's not sleeping, or it's, nutrition, or it's something, we're not afraid to pull the nurse in to those conversations. So really having everyone at the table, I think is really important. But reaching out to, parents, using your resources that are available within your school community, I think is really important. Big districts have a lot more resources than maybe us private schools. So we have to reach out, into our community and familiarize ourselves with those people. And Nationwide is amazing. They're they're fantastic. So I never hesitate to call and make those connections.
Yeah, for sure. And it's good that you're able to find people close to you, like up the street, like you said before, that you can go to or that can come to you and provide those services that are necessary for these kids.
And they have great school programs. So, like, Signs of Suicide is just an example. We also do a drug awareness um, that they do with parents. Like, what should you look for? In your home, in your child's bedroom. Where's your child going on the internet safety? Those kinds of things we can bring in as parent education events, and our parents love that. They
Yeah.
they like they like us to bring those kinds of things here to school.
Okay. And good thing you brought that up. Many schools are sharing that partnering with mental health programs has been easier than integrating a substance abuse prevention or intervention programs. Can you share some of your successes in that area or recommendations that you would have for other groups in need?
Yeah, I mean, we're still learning, like with signs of suicide, still learning like what grade level is it appropriate for. So we did it with our fifth years through our eighth years. Um, we really felt like it was a little heavy for our fifth years. So we're re-examining that next year. Even the schedule, the way we set the schedule, we did it more toward the end of the day. And we felt like it would have been better to do it in the morning because then the students went home and there was a lot of chit chat about the program. So I think, we're still learning in that, like what is best and what that's our community and what our needs are. Um, But I do think that, you know, not being afraid, I guess if I had advice for other leaders, it would be try things. And if it doesn't work, doesn't mean you have to do it again, right? Just because you did it doesn't mean and not be afraid to talk with these professionals that come into schools to say, hey, we really like your program, but this part of it didn't work for us. Or can we talk about tweaking this a little bit so that we're not um for example, we're such a small population and we know our students so well. The signs of suicide, they do what's called a triage, where, it's several adults that sit in on this conversation. We didn't feel the need to bring so many adults and overwhelm the students. It just didn't make sense for us because we know our kids so well. So just being able to be flexible, I think, is a key part of working with an outside partner.
Yeah, and that makes sense because they're gonna have an idea of what they do, and maybe they are used to working with a different type of school or a different type of group. And so when they come into your space, it's like, hey, I understand what the norm is for you guys, but this is what we actually need. And then coming together and trying to figure out a middle ground.
Exactly right. That's a great way to say it. That's exactly right. And hopefully the people that you're partnering with, again, nationwide is on the top of my mind because we just did it. But they're very open to working with us and tweaking it because we are a private school and we are smaller. And we do know our students. Our teachers have our students for 3 years in a Montessori environment. So, you have a child for 3 years, you know that child and you know the family, right? So it looks different than a large public school where you may have the child one period a day, but you've got 170 kids, right? So it's just a completely different model.
Yeah, completely understand that. So as summer approaches, we would like to begin strategizing on how to reach a greater audience. And I've kind of broken down the audiences into three groups. So the first one we want to talk about is people in education systems. So educators, school board members, and administrators. What would you recommend we do to reach those people?
It's so hard. I get 600 emails a day, right?
Yes.
I feel like, and this may be completely unrealistic, but I would much rather have, and other administrators may disagree. I don't, email's bad for me because if I look at it and it's not from a parent or it's not from, a faculty member, I tend to delete it. Honest, I'm just being completely honest. So it's there's only so many emails you can read in a day, right? Um, I really like the more personal outreach. Whether it's a phone call or whether it's hey, can I set up an in-person meeting? Especially now that COVID, we're kind of on the other side of COVID, sort of. Um, I much prefer that than an email. I know people say, well, email gets you in the door, but I don't know if I agree with that. It's hard.
Yeah, I completely understand that too, because I'm one of those people that gets like 900 emails every day. And it's like, okay, what actually is important out of this? What can I ignore and get
Exactly.
on with my day? So maybe even having a combination where you send an email and you also do a phone
Follow up.
call. Yeah, exactly. Rather than just relying on one. And if you don't hear back from one, never contacting them again. Because it's
Yeah.
not that
Yeah.
people aren't interested, it's also a time thing. And yeah.
And I think it's making your message succinct so that people really understand what it is that I'm going to get from this, right? Like, what are my student? Because I don't know an administrator out there, at least in my circles, that doesn't love and care for their children, right? Obviously, we would be doing this crazy heavy work if we didn't care about the children that are our responsibility. So, if you really can show, these are the benefits to your school, the benefits to your children, the benefits to your faculty, you know, that that's your open, right? But making the message distinct. So it's not like I've got to read. If I open an email and it's like 3 pages long, I'm gonna go, oh, scroll. Okay, delete. So I think that messaging is really important.
Yeah. And even maybe sending an email that's shorter, really explains everything in a more generalized sense. Hey, this is what we would like to do for you. This is, the positive things we've seen coming up. If you want more information, we can send another email or we can have a Zoom meeting or in-person
Yeah.
meeting and then give the more deeper details.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And so what would you advise that we do for people in the mental health services? So social workers, counselors, school psychologists, and I also put school nurses, though they're not mental health, they are a health service provider.
They are. They're mental health. There are many kids who come down to the clinic, right, who just want to talk to Nurse Megan. I'm sorry. She's pretty cool. um, that's a good one because I really feel like there's so many tapped resources that we as school educators don't don't take advantage of. And I feel like they want to be in the schools because it's their captive audience, right? So when we have signs of suicide or drug awareness or even when we have parents come in and share their careers or whatever it is, um, that's a captive audience. Those kids are there, right? They're there in class. So I feel like that's a resource that we don't do a very good job of. So I don't know if the pilot program, whoever's running that, I think it's Miami University, right, has some way of reaching out to and do the same thing, right? Like a short, succinct message. Here's how you can serve the schools of the greater Columbus area. Here's these programs that we would love to see implemented for the social and emotional well-being of all of our children, right? It benefits all of us. So same kind of messaging, I think.
For sure. And then even I think even if they can't personally be like, oh, I can give my time to this, even just saying, what would you suggest? Or do you have more contacts or so on and so forth? Do you know someone that specializes in this field or this age
Or
group?
let's them have school programs.
Hmm.
I mean, if you really get out there and you really investigate it, or if it's like maybe they do some kind of education, some of them are willing to tweak it and bring it into the schools. So, again, I think it's being open to the possibilities out there and looking at the needs of your population. What does my school need? And where can I go to find something like that?
Right, right. I like that idea. And so last but not least, we have transportation staff and food service providers.
So we don't have any of those people. I mean, I can't speak from we don't have transportation, and we don't serve lunches. Our students bring their lunches. We cater. We use Piata and we have Pizza Fridays from Donato's. So I can't speak to that. Um, but if we did, let's say we did have a cafeteria and we did have food service people, they would be considered part of our faculty, just like our aftercare people are. I mean, I consider everyone who works here, everyone who's an SJMS employee is considered part of our faculty. So I would consider them, I mean, they're not teaching faculty, but they are part of our staff. I would make sure that they participate in whatever onboarding we have about our SEL curriculum. Now, from your standpoint, I don't know if I have a good answer for that. I don't know because I'm not in charge of bus drivers, so I don't know what that would look like. So I don't have an answer.
That's completely fine. And I find that the food service providers and transportation is a very hard
Audience.
like, yeah, it's a hard audience because they're kind of not a part of everything else, but it's also a situation where it's like a bus driver might see something that you might not see.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I can see where it would be really important. So I think it's just, can you get in to do some training? Do they have like at the beginning of the school year, do they have, well, I'm sure they do, safety trainings and things like that? Could, OSWI be a small part of that? Like what to look for, what to listen for? I mean, that makes perfect sense to me, but we just don't have that here at
Right.
SJMS. But I would want them to be trained. I mean, I provide, well, not I, but the school, we provide all the CPR, the CRACE training. we provide all of that at the beginning of the school year. We just make sure that we set aside time for that. I don't expect faculty to go out and get that somewhere. We provide it here on campus because it's important to me that everyone be trained. Office staff, administrative staff, aftercare, before care, all of that. They all receive all of that training. So this would be no different. It's just as important.
Right. And that makes complete sense, especially if you're already doing your training, just putting that either at the beginning or at the end and saying, hey, these are the signs to look out for if you see a student going through something, you know, hand it over to us so that we can do something in a more intimate school setting.
That's a great point because they may hear something organically that, you hear two students talking or whatever, or see something that doesn't look quite right, and they may see parents. They may see the way caregivers interact with their children at the bus stop or whatever. So no, I think that's really important.
Mm.
I just don't have to
Worry about that part.
I don't have to worry about that part. Yay.
Oh, okay. So, what resources were helpful during the past year from OSWI, and what was beneficial from the support you received?
So definitely the money. That allowed us to buy curriculum and, yeah, to get everything up and running. There was a meeting that I sat in, and I can't remember the exact name, but it was just a more organic, like other leaders, other school leaders were just sharing. And it was early in the morning. I think it was my region. It was a regional meeting, and it was just a sort of a share. Like, tell me what you do for faculty. What are some wellness ideas that you could implement for your faculty? That was extremely interesting. So it was nice to hear, okay, what are you doing? But it was also validating that, oh, we are doing stuff. Because sometimes when you live in it, you forget what you really do day to day, and you forget to pat yourself on the back that, oh, we're doing a good job here. So that I liked those regional meetings and just the share out.
Yeah, and then also it gives you an opportunity to hear other people's ideas and possibly put them into your school and see how they work out with your group.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So I found that to be the most useful. I did not take advantage of the online platform. We already have an SIS system, so I did not take advantage of that. I did not find that useful. Went to several meetings for that, and it was like I felt like they were trying to sell me something, and I was like, okay, I'm not buying this because we already have a system. And I know some people did take advantage, so that's great. We just did not. So I didn't find that useful.
Yeah, and I think it's about like,
Operating, that's what it was, operating.
yes.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think it's also about using the things that you need and not feeling forced to use things that you don't need. I did talk to someone, another school administrator who said that they did really like that service. And then for example, you didn't feel like you needed it. And I think that having the option is good rather than feeling like you were forced to have to use this or
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And did you receive adequate support? What resources do you feel like you still need? Like, do you think that you got like a good, well-rounded support system, or were you like, oh, I'm lacking in this area, I need more help here?
No, I mean, there's a couple times I reached out. I couldn't access the website at first, and so I reached out to somebody, and they got right back with me. I mean, I felt like anything that I needed, and we sort of just took it and ran with it. So I didn't really feel like I needed a ton. Um, I just appreciated being a pilot school. I thought it was pretty cool. And the faculty liked it, and we love what we'll continue. I mean, we're going to continue everything that we put into place. So it's made a difference here, but I felt like I was supported, and it was good. I hope the funding continues, and I hope other schools jump on board. And it wasn't a ton of work. I mean, I filled out the fidelity, checklist and the fidelity follow up and all of that. But other than that, I didn't feel like it was overwhelming amount of work or anything.
And that's good to hear. I think that sometimes we forget how much people have to do overall throughout their day. And then it's like, hey, also do these things and do this and use that. And it's like, it's good to hear that you didn't feel overwhelmed with the amount that you had to do. So that's
Like,
good.
we sort of already knew what we were gonna do. We found this thing that we really liked. We used the money to purchase it, and it fit us, it fit our community, and I liked that as well, that, we weren't told what, social and emotional learning curriculum to, if a school was gonna purchase one. It came with SEL Web, which was really nice. So we had a pre-assessment, we had a post-assessment that I just got the results of. So it was nice that we had a direction kind of already and knew what we were gonna do, and I wasn't told what I had to do.
Completely understand that. And so last but not least, how has staff wellness been brought up in the past year? What was beneficial and what do you feel like still needs to be done?
Yeah, that's a really great one. We've done quite a bit actually. Everything from it- we had massages at Christmas time, which we used some of the funds to pay for that. Everything from that to making sure that our school counselor, was freed up a little bit of time if there was ever a time that faculty. Now that some people might say, "Oh, I don't know about that." That's because they're a colleague, right? So that might be so making sure that there's an understanding of confidentiality and all of that. And if there's, a need for a staff member to talk with someone besides me, right? Because sometimes people are not comfortable coming to their administrator. Although I'd like to think that they are, but I'm sure there are some that are not. So having someone that they can go to and talk to. And then we did a buddy system where they had a buddy teacher that didn't cost any money, right? Where they could connect with a partner, someone that they felt comfortable with. And then we also did some trauma informed stuff that they really liked. And I loved our presenter because she talked about not just trauma informed instruction for the students, but trauma informed for teachers and identifying what they've been through the last, well, really 2.5 years now, and how that's affected uh, everything, our lives, period. So really making sure that when we were addressing students, that we were also thinking about, okay, what can we take from this and apply to, to the faculty? So it was nice that there was those two pillars, students, but then also faculty. And of course the faculty like that.
Yeah. And it's always good to include faculty in the process because it's hard to support other people through things too. Like it takes a toll on you as an individual to support someone through their process. So it's always good to sit back and be like, okay, now I need to breathe and I need to get my back massaged and I need to eat and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
I
great.
tried to make sure we're kind of foodies anyway. We do a lot of like, I don't want to say partying, but we do a lot of like faculty meetings. Somebody will bring food, right? Like we just automatically, we've always done that. We're very much a pretty tight knit community. And so some of those things were already put in place, but we went above and beyond. And then, like I said, the massages and, those are extra things that we would normally have the funds to do. So that was pretty cool. And they loved that, of course.
Yeah, and that community sense that being able to come together, especially outside of the school environment, it does help with mental health. Because getting together outside of school and talking to another human being as a human being outside of the context of every like work, hey, how's this kid doing? And da da da. It's like I get to talk to you as a person, you get to talk to me as a person, and we can just chill out. It's great to be able to actually relax and let down the guards and just be open and honest with people. So I think it was a good
Do
idea.
I do think too that part of this whole thing is, as a leader, just that respect of teachers as professionals. Like I said, like our faculty meetings are not they're professional development. I mean, it's important to continue to professionally develop, your faculty and sending them to conference. We went to national conference this year. I didn't use OSWI money for that, but just it speaks to the culture of the school, and allowing them to go to a professional development session and grow themselves as teachers. That's huge. I can remember working for a big district and going to professional development sessions, and it was just canned. It was for everybody, right? I mean, we're talking a district of, I don't even know how many, like thousands of teachers, right? And so it was really hard to differentiate the learning for people. I was a veteran teacher. I didn't need to go to first year teacher school, right? And then I can do that much easier in a smaller setting. So sending teachers to national conference, using our faculty meetings for professional development just speaks to honoring them as professionals versus, okay, just a warm body in the classroom, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Completely understand. Well, Brenda, I would like to say thank you on behalf of OSWI. We are so grateful and appreciative that you took the time to do this interview with us today. And we look forward to our continued expansion of the SAP program with contributions from people like you. Conversations are necessary for the growth and evolution of this. And we couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for your feedback.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Ivy Lloyd, and today we are working with Ohio School Wellness Initiative. I have the pleasure of speaking with Davis Baker, the principal of Hillsdale High School. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here. Yeah, from Hillsdale High School. We're glad to be a part.
So, Dave, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your history as an educator and a little bit about your school.
Very good. My name is Davis Baker. I'm in my 46th year as a professional educator. I spent 10 years as a classroom teacher and coach. Then have spent the remainder of that time as a building administrator or assistant superintendent of schools. My years include 31 years in Ohio, a couple years in Georgia, and then back to Ohio when we had grandchildren. Love what I do. I'm in a high school with approximately 275 students. We lose about 60 of them to Career Center or to College Credit Plus programs as juniors and seniors. So about half our junior, half our senior class are out. It is a high school with very little discipline issues. I've had one day in 3 years that I've had to suspend a student. It's grounded in the community. When a basketball game ends, you can plan on sticking around another 60 to 90 minutes as parents and athletes and guests sit around in the gymnasium, in the cafeteria, or in the building. And so it is a very strong farm community, an FFA program that is traditionally one of the best in Ohio, and a large number of American farmer degree earners. So that should give you a little bit of an idea. We're very rural, very tight-knit community.
Thank you so much for sharing, Dave. So what we're here to talk about is the SAP program, and SAP stands for Student Assistance Program. So from your perspective, as someone who has initiated a SAP in your school, can you tell us what SAP is and how it affects your school?
I can share that when we initially put the program together, this is my third year at Hillsdale High School. And coming from a much larger high school in the greater Cincinnati area to Hillsdale, there were a number of things that I was very hopeful we would put into place. We put together a mental health or mental wellness team my first year here. When this grant became available, it was a good fit for the things that we have started doing here in this building. Our program really is fortunate the fact that we have a liaison who is here in the building that is provided for us by the Ashland County folks. It is in addition to having a school counselor, we also have a liaison who is a social worker that addresses a lot of the challenges that we face. And so we have one here at the high school, we have another at the middle school and the elementary, and their involvement along with special ed coordinator, curriculum coordinator, our resource officer, our guidance counselors, and a couple of staff members in addition to myself are all a part of a team that was in place. From there, this year, we put into place a 40-minute advisory period to take place every Wednesday. Some of the topics or things that we've covered over the course of a year include everything from building safety, bullying, suicide and mental health, addressing career interests, celebrating what we call the 3 E's: enrollment, enlistment, and employment, vaping, internet safety, dating violence, cell phone etiquette, donating blood or organ donor program, how to benefit from College Credit Plus, military opportunities, becoming a friend would like to have, goal setting, victims' rights, human trafficking. We have a month of kindness. We have personal health planning, the emergency plans that we have in place for the district. Again, addressing being a friend that a friend would like to have. We have a terrific resource officer that wrote a grant that got a golf cart. And so we put together an obstacle course with drunk driver goggles so that our kids could drive during that time, something that was featured on TV. We talked about human trafficking, learning styles, how students learn best, how they can take advantage of what they do well, team building, creating trust and support, creating a caring culture. We have a session of mental health month that's taking place. We talk about how students are not a question of are you smart, it's how are you smart. We brought in somebody to talk about drones and jobs of the future, caring for Mother Earth, and so forth. So that kind of gives you an idea of the things that were put into place for our students were really a whole school approach, in addition to the fact that we have individuals that work with our students in a lot of those different areas as well.
Well, that's amazing, David. It sounds like you guys have covered a lot of ground with all of those. So as you were creating the SAP program, how did you decide who should be on your student assistance team? And I know you said you had some counselors and things like that, but of the regular staff, I'll say teachers, how did you decide who should be on your student assistance teams? And did you have to work hard to recruit them, or were they very willing to come forth and assist?
We're fortunate that had been put in place 2 years before we were able to jump on board with the Ohio School Wellness Grant. And so it's in place, it's still in place. We meet on a regular basis. We do programs at both the middle school and the high school.
Wonderful. So do you have any tips for schools that are just kind of getting into the program about building their teams, or team morale, keeping everybody engaged and wanting to come back and not, just getting disheartened or anything like that?
I can, because we've created that 40-minute block every week that is open. We brought in almost 3 dozen guest speakers during the course of the year to participate in those advisory sessions. The great thing is our mental health team can meet during that 40 minutes. Our department heads can have meetings during that 40 minutes. Our curriculum director takes advantage of that because all of our students and most of our staff are in those sessions, and those that need to meet, that has created a 40-minute block of time that we can use. Our threat assessment team meets once a month during that time. And so by building the advisory period every Wednesday, we're on a different bell schedule, but every Wednesday from 12:40 until 1:20, that block of period gives us a lot of opportunities to keep people involved and meet on a regular basis, everything from positive behavior intervention and support to the advisory session to our response to intervention plan that we have in place.
That's wonderful. And so a lot of the groups that we're talking to are worried about the commitment involved in, or the time commitment, I should say, involved in executing an effective SAP. Can you speak on this? I see you said, you get your 40-minute block and all the programs you've talked about. So I'm sure it's a lot of time going into planning this, going into actually having it done, and, making sure everybody's schedule is together so that they can come to the meetings and so on and so forth. Can you speak on how you and your colleagues address this need?
Well, obviously, if we're meeting once a month, we pretty much planned a year ago the topics that we wanted to cover. So we knew where our available county resources were in Ashland County. We've had a number of these speakers in to talk with our students in the past. Some of those outside groups also run groups that take place on Thursdays and Fridays, and we have students on a rotating basis that miss first period the first week, second period the second week, third period the third week, fourth period the fourth week, until they go 2 months before they miss a class twice. And so just knowing that rotating, making that work, just knowing that we have advisory, knowing that we have a number of topics that are important to us, knowing that we have a number of available county resources that we take advantage of, all of those things fit very nicely into the planning process. I think it also helped as a building principal. I spent probably 15 years doing this in my past high school. And so having some ideas, being able to put things together and sharing it with our staff meeting, because we meet as a group just before we have our staff meetings. And so we pretty much keep all of our staff well informed a month in advance of what's coming. And so planning and experience, and maybe drawing from a lot of experience in the past on my part, has helped a little bit.
Awesome. So it's great that you're able to keep everyone organized and together as you guys move through the program. My next question is, what strategies have you found to be helpful for engaging students and caregivers into the program?
Students have been relatively easy. Matter of fact, we just, I'm in the process of retiring. We had a group of students that were involved in the interview process. When one of those applicants asked, what is it that you're really doing well at Hillsdale High School that you would like to see continue? The point that they brought up was, we really like the 40-minute advisory period on Wednesday because we see and hear a lot of important things. Yesterday, for example, it was taking care of Mother Earth. It was put together by our environmental science teacher and 2 of his classes. It involved the students seeing a PowerPoint presentations by students, and then going outside, doing a little bit with an electric car as well as a gas guzzling truck, like one of our students was driving. And so it has really encompassed the building. The students are completely on board. We try to make it very educational. We try to make it fun. It's not a sit and lecture or sit and get. It is, for example, when we had the golf cart that our resource officer was able to secure with a grant, that's a $6,000 golf cart. And so we had students that permission slips in hand, put on the drunk driver goggles, sat next to the resource officer, and ran over a bunch of cones. And so those are the types of things that if you're fortunate enough to have the right people in the right places, and we are fortunate that we do, there are a lot of very enjoyable, positive memories and learning moments that we put in place for our kids.
That's amazing. So what are some of the ways that you are able to ensure that the plans created for the students are individualized and based on their needs, and not just a one size fits all cookie cutter approach?
One of the activities our mental health team put together before the start of the school year was they worked and came up with 5x7 pictures of every single student in the district, and then decorated them across 2 walls in our gymnasium. Then, as part of our professional service to address the issues that we are putting in front of everybody, we asked teachers to take a sticker or a pin and put a mark on every student that they honestly felt like they had a personal relationship with them. When we got done, we videotaped so that we had that future reference. But we also, in my case, I made a list of some of those students that had no check mark whatsoever at the high school level. Now we know that we have a group of students that probably don't have a lot of involvement. And one of the things that helped me is every morning I spend 45 minutes from 7:15 to 8 o'clock. Well, every student in the building. It's a small building with the numbers we have. I know every student by first, last name, a lot of them by nicknames that I've given. Regardless, the idea is some of those students that I knew were not attached, my goal was to find places for them to become attached if I could. But more importantly, I don't think there's anything sweeter to a kid than having somebody call them by their first name. And so that's a piece that I know who a lot of those students are based on the information that we have. And it gives me a chance to address some of those. But our entire faculty staff had a chance to see and participate in that. So it was really a helpful piece. The other thing we have in place is, and it's tied together with our positive behavior intervention and support program, is discipline-wise, it's not our issue. We're not concerned about who's chewing gum fourth period down by the restaurant. What we're concerned about is how many kids are not passing their classes. The School Without Failure program is set up so that every Friday, every teacher in the building submits a list to the building principal of any student that's fallen behind more than one homework assignment. If they fail the test, they need to retake it, which we require of them, or if they're a major assignment behind or falling behind. Then on Mondays, those students get a slip of paper because every Sunday the principal comes in. He writes the slip for those students. He creates a list. We keep the data on it because that's required for the positive behavior intervention and support. Every student will get a list of the assignments where they're not done. They're required to have them done by Wednesday at 3:00, or they have Wednesday school. It's not a punishment, it's a promise. A promise is we're not going to let you fail. You're not allowed to fail in our building. There's no penalty for late. The only penalty is for lack of effort. And what we found is not a question of can our kids do the work. It's a question of why aren't they doing the work? And so with that in place, every student receives an update every Monday morning if they're behind. And their parents get an automated phone call to let them know that Johnny or Susie hasn't completed their work from last week, and they have till Wednesday at 3:00 to get it done, or they can't go to football practice, they can't be in the weight room, they can't be on the gym floor or on the stage. And we pulled 3 or 4 starting football players off the field, brought them in. When they get their work done, they're free to go. But the idea is you're not allowed to fail until high school.
That's amazing. And I used to work at an after school program with kids. And one thing the idea of putting everyone's picture up and saying, I have connection to these kids and I know that I can get through to these kids is such a wonderful idea that I think could definitely be spread around. I know that for me personally, I love psychology. I didn't go to school for it, but I've done a lot of research into it. And when I was working with the kids, I used that as a jumping off point for our interactions. And I remember I had this one kid who had anger management issues. Just genuinely was like when he was happy, it was a beautiful, bright, sunny day. But when he got upset, and it could be the smallest thing that would turn him around. And it was just like the complete opposite. So we sat down one day because he almost got into a fight. And I was like, what we're not going to do is put our hands on other people. And so we talked about it. And I was like, what can we do to get you out of this place of anger and get you feeling better so that you can communicate what's wrong so that we can move forward? And so what he decided that he wanted to do was run. So whenever he was upset, having a bad day, we would run laps and I would run him with, I got in real good shape. So it's really that individualized, hey, let's have an intimate moment and talk about this and really getting to understand each kid that really just brings it all together. And it's beautiful that you guys have put that into your school as well. So our next question is, what tips do you have for working with community partners?
Well, there are a lot of community partners that are happy to come in and speak if you just invite them to do so. And we learn from one set of community partners by communicating with them about other community partners that they might suggest or hear of. But because our liaison is closely affiliated with the Ashburn County Health Department, that is a tremendous resource for us. Having a resource officer that's been here for a few years and has a lot of connections in the community, that's another tremendous resource for us. Having guidance counselors that have been in the district for many years, they know where the best places to go to find those people. But it's amazing the number of people that we have that are involved with us. The opportunities that are there that just take a little bit of time to explore and find. We're very fortunate that you would think in a rural, small community like ours with lots and lots of tractors in the parking lot some days, that finding those resources would be difficult, but they're not. and they really are available if you have time. And if you have a list to work from, perhaps from another school that's doing the same type of thing, when you see what they're doing. I think the secret sometimes is not reinventing the wheel, but find somebody that has exactly what you need. Paint that wheel with your colors and make it work for you.
That's awesome. It's great that people are willing to give of themselves and come and work with you guys. So we've heard that many schools have shared that partnering with mental health programs has been easier than integrating a substance abuse prevention and other intervention programs. Can you share some of your successes in that area or recommendations you have for groups that need some ideas?
I think what we've been able to do, and some of the most powerful speakers that we've had are people that address suicide prevention. Our speaker that came in and talked about human trafficking, talked about where alcohol and drug abuse comes into play. Having somebody come in and talk about alcohol and drug abuse and sharing a lot of the other things that spin off from that. I think that some of those speakers have really done more than just address their topic. They've also addressed the importance of alcohol and drug abuse. Another thing that we have in place is we've taken our best leaders, many of our captains, some of our class officers that we think are true leaders. We have a clear definition of what good leaders are and what true leaders are, or good friends and true friends. And that definition is based on this. We all have lots of acquaintances. We have many good friends that'll be there for the good time. But our true friends are the ones that when we're about to make a bad choice, or when we're going to do something that'll get us in trouble, and we might not be thinking clearly, our true friends are the ones that put their arm around us and say, not doing that. Walk away. Let's go. We're not going to be a part of it. And so our captains that meet once a month, and then also serve as volunteers to go to the elementary school and read to our second and third graders every month after that meeting. They understand the importance of, if they're not strong enough, it's one thing you got to be able to recognize right and wrong. And then you have to ask yourself, am I too weak or am I strong? And the strong, the true leaders are the ones to say, don't do it, make good choices. And those are the kids that are leading us in the classroom and on the athletic competition fields. And so that's another piece that's in place that the athletic director and the building principal meet with and talk to their students and tell them how important they are to us and the success of our building.
That's amazing. I love the idea of putting students in leadership positions because it gives them a sense of responsibility and connection to the program, to the other students, to themselves. It really creates an environment where they feel like, hey, I am actually doing something that's beneficial. And even the idea of them going to the middle schools and elementary schools and reading for the kids, that is an amazing idea. And I love to see that spread. That's beautiful. Our next question, as summer is approaching, we would like to begin strategizing on how to reach a greater audience. And I've kind of broken down the audiences into three main groups. And we'd love to hear your recommendations on how to reach them. And you kind of spoke on it a little bit already, but we're going to start with people in the education system. So educators, school board members, and administrators.
I think, again, having an idea of what you want, having had a year or two or three to get it under your belt, feeling comfortable with the idea of the advisory period, that is really a plus for us. Having ideas what you want to plug into those advisory periods, that's important. Realizing that the advisory period also creates some other options for staff members, another staff meeting and so forth. That's another important piece. I think that our mental health team is a pretty solid team that's been in place, and it's not something that's been in question at all. The school without failures process. My first year here before it was in place, at the end of the first quarter, I had 5 pages of kids who failed one or more classes. The last time we went through that, we had less than a page. And so the promise to the kids that you're not allowed to fail and that you're going to have to do your work has really, really paid off for us. And so just having those programs, just having the leaders that meet morning, once a month. Those are important pieces. And we've had coaches that have said to two of our leaders, we're not going to be in this meeting. This is your team. There are some things going on. You're going to meet with the team and you're going to address it and you're going to set the expectation. And having that, having coaches that have confidence in our leaders, having teachers that have confidence in our leaders, those are important pieces to help us become the school we want to become.
And so our second group we already spoke on, which is mental health services. So I put social workers, counselors, psychologists, and school nurses. I kind of, school nurses aren't necessarily mental health services, but, they kind of go all together. If you have any more insight on getting those people involved, we can expand on that if you would like.
And again, we're a smaller district, and so those people are already built in the process. Those are the people we really count on. But we're fortunate here in Ashburn County that we have a liaison, a social worker that works with them. When a kid misses a week or two at school, that liaison will go visit their home and say, what can we help you with? We had that one pregnancy over the last 3 years when the young lady became a family way. Her visits on a weekly basis and some of the contributions and things that were made by our staff members for diapers were all beneficial. Those are some of the pieces that having the Ashburn County Liaison program out of our mental health department is a tremendous, tremendous plus. So those are all things that are already built in for us. And so we're just able to take advantage of them at time, allows us to see how we can best develop.
That's amazing. And I love that you guys got together to make sure that the student who had a baby, had the supplies that she needed. It's so hard being a mother, nevertheless being a child and being a mother. So I'm sure that benefited her immensely. Our next group that we're going to talk about is transportation staff and food service providers.
And really, we have 7 bus drivers in our district. Many of them also work as custodians. Some of them work as custodians, cafeteria workers, and transportation. And so that's a group that is involved with us as we move students around, but not so much sitting in on meetings and so forth. And so that's probably an area that in some districts could play more of a stronger role. In this district, they really haven't been in a position where they could play that strong role like they might in some others.
Okay. So our next question, what resources were helpful during the past year that you received from OSWI, and what was beneficial from the support you received?
The fact is that when I was in Cincinnati, we used a program called Naviance. Naviance, just my opinion, is it's a guide program on steroids. We're now hooking up with another organization very similar to that, and so the funding was a big part of bringing that into place. Next year will be a much stronger factor in the advisory program, but it helps students decide where they want to go, what they want to do, help them with the process of applying to college. It helps them understand where their strengths and weaknesses are. And so finding funding to make that program fit for us was a big help in that direction. We also picked up a second grant, the Botvin Personal Leadership Training Program. That's part of what we have been doing. The major clarity is the program that we're bringing on board for all of our students, grades 6 through 12, starting next year.
So when it comes to the support you received, do you feel like you received adequate support? And what resources do you feel like you still need? Were there any barriers that you faced? Do you feel like you needed more?
I know we started off, we did a 2 or 3 day training program, and several of our people took in some of those sessions. It was a program that used technology that we weren't familiar with, and so that was a barrier. Another barrier is that we felt like we were being encouraged to leave our tracking program that we had here for a tracking program being made available through the grant process, and that met with a lot of resistance here. We're very comfortable with what we have. And so we're kind of not sure where that was taking us, why we needed to change, and so forth. And So those were two things that kind of started off in that direction. And then, to be honest with you, that's about all the help we got. That was during that first, very beginning initial stage. Part of it probably can be related to the pandemic, but there were virtually no in-person meetings that we participated in outside of our building. There was a regional person in charge. We thought we were going to get a visit, but never saw the visit. Never really learned who else in our area was doing the same thing we were, because we would have loved to have the chance to get together with some of those districts and face-to-face meetings. I think that one of the things we really learned through the pandemic is that online learning is a poor substitute for face-to-face learning with people, and trying to do everything online, it just simply wasn't a good fit for the program that we felt we needed to come forward with. So we did nothing online with our program as far as bringing in guest speakers. We wanted the actual thing. We wanted more interaction. We had activities where they left the auditorium, they were on the gym floor, they were doing across the line, they were doing team building type things. Those are the pieces that we really missed and felt like they needed to be in place. And maybe mostly because of the pandemic, I'm not sure. Was really, really very, very little assistance after that first month from that point forward.
So definitely having better communication and like having them reach out more to you guys, and having monthly check-ins is something that you're looking for.
Um, yeah, I think more communication with maybe not, in particular, people that are doing the same thing we are. I can't tell you if anybody else is doing what we're doing. And it would have been nice to feel like we were more together on things. I know as principals, we meet once a month with all the principals in our conference. I know as principals that go to the Career Center, all those students or all the principals and guidance counselors meet once or twice a month. That's a piece that, if the program is going to be successful, I think for accountability as well as networking purposes, it's really important to not feel like you're out on an island, not sure who else or where else or what else is all doing.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that feedback. And last but not least, how has staff wellness been brought up in the past year? What was beneficial and what still needs to be done?
We have not done virtually anything with staff wellness. And part of that is being a small building. Most of our people are involved in after school or before school activities. So there's some real limitations as to what we can do. Outside of some quiet conversation, there really hasn't been a whole lot. And so I'm not sure how we can even change that for the future. Just simply between their family commitment, between their commitment to coaching and to activities that they're involved with music or drama, it's really difficult to go beyond where we're at this point for a program that benefits the faculty and staff. I do know that we had some conversations about, we think the next big wave of issues that will come in education are personal health of our students. And so we've had some conversation about creating a 10-minute mini phys ed period that would take place between second and third period, 4 days a week, the 4 days that we don't have advisory period on Wednesday. The students would all take a physical fitness test from 7th grade on. At the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. It would include things like blood pressure. It would include things like body mass. Those are things that we haven't touched on with our students, and yet our phys ed department will be quick to tell you that 60 to 70% of our students are overweight and 30% have reached the obese level, and they haven't finished high school yet. And so that 10-minute period would be broken up into 4 different areas, actually 5. 1, they or 0, they're not interested. Number 1 would be yoga and meditation. Number 2 would be creative dance or movement. Number 3 would be isometric. Number 4 would be classrooms that have a chin-up bar or chin-up bar across the back wall. They can do sit-up, push-up, dip, and pull-ups. They would do it 4 days a week throughout the school year. Then lunches would become 45 minutes long. Because we have a large area in our new building that they can walk a square, the goal is students would walk 165 miles a year or 1 mile a day, a little less than that, so that they could accumulate that. It's all kept. All that information is stored so that when they graduate, they can look back at their 7th, their 8th, their 9th grade year, to their height, their width, their blood pressure, a lot of different things, where they are percentile-wise with their height, with their other classmates and so forth. That information would all be part of their personal health file that they take with them when they graduate high school. So we're looking at some of those creative things, because as much as 10 years ago we thought social emotional wellness was finally going to be here, well, 10 years later it did. 10 years down the road, we think personal health and fitness will be the next area where we see a lot of changes coming. And if we don't start taking care of our young people and their health and their heart, we'll be in the same situation with personal health that we are right now with social emotional learning.
Thank you for expanding on that. And Dane, I would like to say thank you on behalf of OSWI. We're so grateful and appreciative that you took the time to do this interview with us today. And we look forward to our continued expansion with the SAP program, with contributions from people like you. Conversations are necessary for the growth and evolution of this, and we can't do this without your feedback. So again, thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm glad to help. I should share with you that I just have a few more days. I'll be retiring here and doing some other things, and but I've enjoyed what I've been able to do. This is, I think, year number 46 or 47, and it's been a great ride. I hope that there might be a thing or two that others can take from this.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Ivy Lloyd, and today we are working with the Ohio School Wellness Initiative. I have the pleasure of speaking with Amy Bings, the mental health therapist of Goal Digital Academy. Thank you so much for joining us today, Amy.
It's good to be here.
Amy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for everyone and tell us a little about your school, your history as an educator?
Okay. Like I said, like she said, my name is Amy Bings, and I'm a mental health therapist with Goal Digital Academy. Goal is a hybrid program. Our academics are delivered digitally, but we also encourage in-lab participation. Students can come in anytime. Our labs are staffed with teachers, guidance counselors, advocates, tutors. So we truly are a mix of both online learning and in-person learning, and we offer a lot of support services like groups and some social activities, art programming. So we are wanting to kind of have the best of the world of digital learning, where students can have a flexible schedule and work or parent or whatever it is that they may need to do in their lives, but also have the support that they need if they need it. And Goal is designated as a dropout prevention program by the state of Ohio. We have a high population of at-risk students and economically disadvantaged students. So our students tend to not have the typical high school track where they might be, in the band or on the football team. They may be dealing with other more adult life issues. So our way of delivering academics is more catered to their individual needs. And our board is very forward thinking in actually employing 2 licensed mental health therapists on our staff, because many students just don't have the means to go out and get into therapy. Either it's a transportation issue or just not being able to connect with getting that set up. So we provide that free of charge. So that's where I come in. I have my background is I worked in the psychiatric hospital for the first half of my career. The second half of my career, I've worked at the intersection of mental health and schools. And I have a undergraduate degree in art therapy and my master's degree in social work. And I've been working in a school setting as a licensed independent social worker for, I think, 17 years now. So a little bit about me.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
So what we're here to talk about today is the SAP program, and
Yeah.
SAP stands for Student Assistance Program. From your perspective, as someone who has initiated a SAP program in your school, can you tell us what SAP is and how it affects your school?
Sure. So we started this TAP program after having received the Ohio School Wellness Initiative grant, and several of our staff members attended the Miami University School Success Conference that last summer that was kind of geared toward getting that whole grant off the ground, the SAP team off the ground. So we have an administrator on our team. Her name is Kelly Fisher. She's one of our building principals. And she and I kind of worked together to choose who we thought would be good SAP team members. That was our first agenda. And we chose people from all different disciplines at Goal. So we have a guidance counselor on our team, someone who is in the role of advocate, which is a designation we have here that so all students are assigned an advocate who's kind of their go-to person to walk them through the whole process of being at goal. We have a special education teacher. We have an elementary gen ed teacher. We have a high school gen ed teacher. The other therapist is also on the team. So we tried to pull people from every aspect of goal so that they could bring their perspective. So that's how we chose the team. Um, we chose extra members knowing that every time we met, not everybody might not be available. Um, and we did have people that initially showed interest, but then kind of faded away, which we thought might happen. So I would say we started with a 11 or 12 names and ended up with about 8 core team members that stayed with us till the end. Um, so getting people to buy in, it's hard for anybody to find the time. Um, we ended up settling on 2 meetings a month. I don't know do you want me to get into this stuff or is this for later question?
Um, yeah, you can talk about the meetings. I don't think I have a specific question about the meeting. So if you want to go ahead and talk about that now,
Mhm.
that's fine.
So, so part of finding the time, Gold did something interesting this year. Every Wednesday morning, our labs are closed until noon, and so that is designated meeting time for any of the different groups, teacher groups, specialized groups that need to get together and do staff business staff training. So our SAP team was able to capture time during that time. And then we also picked another meeting time at the end of the day from 2 to 4 once a month. And so people were able to stay pretty true to that commitment. We did initially try to get together in person. That quickly changed to Zoom because we have labs in 7 locations. So we're kind of unique in that we are not a school district that's all in the same city. We have 7 labs in 7 different locations. So, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So, do you have any tips for schools just getting into the program on how to build their student assistance teams and how to know when to, like you said, you had a couple of people who kind of fell to the wayside, how to know when to make adjustments for things like that for people that might not really have the time like they thought they initially would?
Right. Well, I think that y- when choosing team members, you have to have somebody that has been around a while and knows the personalities of, maybe knows the people that might really be into this, you know, um, knows the people that might be willing to give up some of their own planning time, to try and help students that are really struggling. So just taking the time to make some thoughtful choices, I think, is a good strategy to begin with. Um, because I think if you have people on your team that are resentful about being there, it's just, not going to work. No point in trying to force somebody to be there, I would say. Um, you know, we got some buy-in too, I think, by being able to make a presentation at the very beginning of the school year about what SAP was for, what we were hoping to achieve, talking about the status of the state of mental health of students, um, in our area and in the country. And no one's surprised by any of that. The data, the statistics, um, and the staff knows, staff mental health suffering as well. So, everybody's very aware that things are not good mental health wise in our communities and with our students and our families. So, um, selling the idea of a more formalized approach to identifying and tracking those students, um, that's not a hard sell at all. We know, everyone knows, we've got kids that are falling through the cracks. And so the idea of a team to identify and track and serve is something everybody, I think, could get behind. So,
Yes, I agree. And I have a question that's not listed. As far as say, for example, those teachers that initially showed interest but weren't able to continue, is there a way for people like that that maybe don't have a whole lot of time to dedicate to it, but maybe can still do a few things here and there to assist with the program? Do you have any ideas for things that they can do?
yeah. So we never took anybody off our team. Um, and occasionally some of those people would show up, especially if they saw that somebody on our agenda to review was a student that they actually knew a lot about or had a connection with. Um, so, and also, we pulled staff in for a particular meeting that might have a connection with a particular student. So I think the potential for people to flow in and out based on the students that we were really trying to help at the moment, there could be some fluidity in who attended at the time, if that makes sense. So, the core team um, would include other people at times, depending on what students we were wanting to assist. So, um, we never said to people, you're kicked out because you haven't been showing up enough. So, sometimes they would still pop in to our sessions, especially if the kids we were reviewing. I would send out an agenda with the names of the students that had been referred and um, invite people who had a particular connection with that student to join. Um, so,
Yeah. And it sounds like you guys kind of have a slight open door policy where it's like if you have the time, then you come. And if you don't, then we'll see you next week or whenever the next time you can come is. So many groups are worried about the time commitment involved in executing an effective SAP. Can you speak on this and how you and your colleagues address that need?
yeah, yes. So at the beginning, it was more time consuming because we were trying to figure out how are we going to run this and what are our policies and procedures and how are we going to do things. It was time consuming at first, and people just kind of supervisors were made aware this person's on this team. They need to be able to commit the time. And then as we got better at what we were doing and streamlined our referral process, especially, and how we would review and how often we would review any individual kid, um, we got things down to a reasonable amount of time. And we had a couple team members that were good at saying, they were kind of assigned to keep us on track. Hey, we've already gone over this. Let's move on to the next student. Let's be mindful of our time. People took on roles, um, and it actually went well. Um, just having somebody be a timekeeper, someone who, took notes and said, hey, we've still got 3 more kids to cover. So I think that the team members that really committed and showed up every session made this a priority. Um, we've got kids in crisis, and they made it a priority. And so that was actually really nice. Um, so, and it was really hopeful for myself and the other mental health therapists to feel like we were not alone in trying to deal with crises, and especially when the crisis was, not just mental health, but grades and maybe housing and all these other things. And then we could focus on the mental health part, but other people in the team could make the calls about, hey, this family's going to lose their house, and or whatever else. There were other people that could do the other things. Um, which is kind of in a nutshell how we worked. Is we divided up the tasks of who was going to tackle what part, and the academic pieces, who's going to put in the academic supports, and what should those look like. And so
That's awesome. It sounds like you guys really allowed each person to do the thing that they were good at
right.
and not just be like, okay, you have to do this, you have to do this, and not base it on anything.
Yeah.
Um, and it's really great that people came into the positions of like time management and making sure you got to every kid that was on the list and things like that. Um, Especially when it comes to mental health, there's so many factors that are outside of the school that a lot of people tend to forget about. It's like, "Why aren't you getting A's in class?" And it's like, "Well, I'm scared I'm not gonna have anywhere to sleep tonight." So,
Right.
yeah, there's so many variables, and to
Right.
be like, "Okay, this person is over that department, this person is over this department, this person is over this department," and through that combined effort, being
Yeah.
able to get that kid back on track. That's really great that you guys figured that out.
Yeah.
So our next question, what strategies have you found helpful for engaging students and caregivers into the program?
Yeah. So caregivers, typically when we first were referred a student, because we did not open our referrals up to family. Our first year, we're like, we don't know what we're doing. We only opened it to staff. We contemplated opening it up to students and caregivers, and we thought, let's figure out what we're doing and let's not try too much. But what we did was we would pull families in as soon as we realize what are our factors here? What are we talking about? And so we would assign, one person on the team, whoever may already have a connection with the family, to notify the family and say, um, here's how we would like to help. So if that might be a teacher that already had a relationship with the student, it might not be anybody that was sitting on the team. It might be whoever had a relationship with that family. But, how can we help? These are some things we think we might be able to help with, and take it from there. So that's how we engage families. We are not certain that, where we are with what we want to do with our referral process. We haven't made that decision whether we want to publish on our website and in all our orientation materials that, hey, we have this team and, you know, open it up. We just have not made that decision yet. And we need to make the decision because, um, all of our orientation materials are going to be, getting prepared soon for August. Um, and I think a lot of our questions around that are, how do we determine, um, if- we know that it'll increase the volume greatly. And does SAP want to be the starting point with parents who really may have a question that just should be for an individual, like an individual teacher or an individual guidance counselor, and they may bring it to the SAP team because they think it's, more escalated in their mind than it would be to us. I, I don't, I'm not sure I'm being clear about what I'm trying to say, but
I think I understand what
to the
you're
where it's a
saying.
really huge
Right.
deal, almost to crisis level, where really there are some preliminary steps where maybe it could be taken care of without having to come to the SAP team. So that's what we're weighing out as to whether we open it up for families to make referrals.
Okay, I see. And that makes sense because it's when you have limited resources, it's like
Mhm.
how stretched out do we want to be? Because there's also that idea of okay, hey, you have to go here first and da da da, and then you have to take them back to that step to get to this step and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. So it definitely makes sense. Do you feel like your team right now has enough support, or do you feel like you actually need more support as far as like maybe making sure you have enough hands on deck to do those kinds of things?
I think we're feeling pretty good with what
Mhm.
we have right now if we stay with the format we have where it's staff referral. I think that we feel like the amount of time we have dedicated and the number of staff members are pretty correct. Um, if we open it to other referral sources, then we'd have to rethink that.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next question. What are some ways you are able to ensure the plans created for the students are individualized and based on their needs and not just a cookie cutter one size fits all approach?
Yeah. So we don't have any cookie cutter format at all. So we just start from scratch with every single kid. It's a discussion. What does this kid need? Um, so we just don't do any cookie cutter at all. Um, at every kid, we look at their grades. We look at what all information is in there regarding. We have a communication system where, all staff enter things electronically in the computer about what's going on with that kid. Somebody has that pulled up. Somebody has their academic reports pulled up. We have, therapy information if they're involved in therapy. So we pull together the information on each kid and just start at the beginning. So, we don't really have any set, um, plan of this is what's going to happen. It's very individualized. So
Okay, that's awesome.
yeah.
Um, so what tips do you have for working with community partners? Do you have any community partners?
So that's again, we didn't go there in any kind of formalized way. Um, if a student, and part of that is difficult because we're in the 7 different cities. Um, for us, community partnering means community partnering in all of our locations. So what happens is, most of our community partnering involves outside referrals to therapy. And so myself and the other therapist have lists of outside agencies in each of our 7 communities that we can reach out to. But as far as really knowing other resources in each of the 7 communities, the advocate in each community knows those, but that's something that we can improve on. We did not really bite that off in any kind of major way, and I think we need to. So that would be, um, in the goal setting process for next year. That's an area that we need to get into, I think.
It's also something that requires a lot of research and reaching out and possibly hearing a lot of no's before you hear any yeses.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand, um, like being like, okay, let's understand what we're doing first and then go
Right,
out exactly
right,
and talk to these groups.
right.
Um, so many schools have shared that partnering with mental health programs has been easier than integrating substance abuse prevention and other prevention programs. Can you share some of your successes in this area or recommendations you have for groups that need some ideas?
Yeah. So I would say I'm not in a position to make good recommendations there because we have not really done that. Although I think we need to do that. Um, we've done it in pockets in small ways. We had a couple of our labs had community family nights, and they brought in agencies. And in our main lab in Mansfield, um, we brought in Casey, the organization in town that does all the drug and alcohol prevention, and they were a presence at the family night and did fun activities with the families and passed out information. Um, I think that that is also part of our planning for next year. One of the identified needs is to bring drug and alcohol prevention, um, a connection to each of the communities that we're in. Um, Neither myself or the other mental health therapists, I mean, we have basic knowledge, obviously, but neither of us feel like that is an area of expertise for us. So that that is also on our need list of something we need to improve on and get better at. And it's a challenge for us because whatever we do, we have to do times 7. Um, it's not just figuring it out for one location, but that's not a good reason to not do it. So that's another thing that we've discovered that we don't have this well covered.
Yeah.
Um,
And as you said, you do have so many different areas that you're servicing. So I completely understand being like, okay, we're gonna have to sit down and tackle this at some
right,
point.
right.
um, do you guys have I guess an idea of what you're going to and this isn't a listed question, but do you guys have an idea of what you're going to do to kind of tackle that either next year or is it like something that you would have to research over the summer so that when next year starts, you can have a plan set in place?
Right. Um, so we are going to identify, um, and probably not over the summer and be ready for the fall, but it's going to be one of the tasks for the team next year that hopefully a couple of the members of the team are going to take that on as their kind of side project to research agencies that might be willing to come in and do programming in each location. That's kind of our thought right now. We have a couple feelers out, and that's our plan right now to tackle it is to make connections. And um, we do have some money that those agencies typically want to be paid when they come in school settings. And although there's a lot of grant money still flowing out there, so but making those arrangements to actually bring them into our buildings and provide some of those prevention services, that's what we're wanting to do. And I think um, part of what myself and the other mental health therapists are trying to get a handle on is understanding and giving it up. Like, we can't do all of it. We need to be, because, we are constantly having a stream of kids in crisis. It's just the name of the game this year. And so we need to be willing and able and find those people that say, I can do that. I can contact outside drug and alcohol agencies and set up those, you know, arrangements and be those connector people. Um, so that's part of the learning process for myself and Deb, the other therapist, is that we need to use this team more, um, to do some of this work. Not just sit on the committee to review the kids twice a month, but actually to do some of the work of the SAP team.
Right, kind of disseminating that a little more,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
that's not so much on you guys.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll go on to the next question. As summer is approaching, we would like to begin strategizing on how to reach a greater audience. And I've kind of broken down the audiences into three main groups, and we'd love to hear your recommendations on how to reach them. So the first group I would like to talk about is people in the education system. So educators, uh, school board members, and administrators.
I think everyone is seeing the crisis with students and families. I mean, they have to be, and I mean, unless they just have blinders on. So I think getting them to the action stage of, there are supports available to you. It's just a matter of, um, designating people to get involved, is probably where the pitch is. Um, and I think the SAP process happens, um, and it just may not be organized and defined as that. I think it happens in some way, shape, or form in most school settings. So I think, saying here is a way that you can formalize it and streamline it, and make it easier, might get their attention. I I don't know. Um, I think for boards and superintendents, you don't want suicides. You don't want these awful crises that get you this horrible public attention, and you have these tragedies in your communities and in your schools that it's awful for your kids to get over, and your staff, and, you know, trying to look at it from up here where they look at it, um, so you can do some things to try and keep that from happening. Um, so, I mean, I think a SAC team, sorry about that, is a way to prevent that on more of a, ground level. Um, I don't know, I feel so fortunate. Our superintendent is totally pro mental health. I mean, we couldn't ask for more support than we get from her. Um, so I've never had to fight that battle, um, with administration. Um, so I don't know. I'm struggling to think of how, if you have a administration that's not getting it, um, other than, um, they have to know that the problem is there in their school, and, here's a way to organize a, um, engaging in a system to identify and help these kids. And I think something I haven't said when we're talking is, our first task as a SAP team was to, um, find and implement a universal screening tool. And and we had to get board approval for that. And, there were some sticky things. I mean, we had to send out a letter to parents, and we did have some parents opt out, did not want their kids screened. But that was our start with the board, was the universal screening tool, um, so that we had data about the number of at-risk kids we had. And then, let's find these kids and help them before they become something becomes tragic. So,
Yeah, and when you have someone that's above you who isn't necessarily buying into the idea, because it sometimes isn't really about the kids. Usually, I notice when people have issues admitting that there's a problem, it's not usually about the group that's having a problem. It's about their perception of having an issue in
right.
general. And so, in an ideal situation, at the very least, they'll be able to acknowledge that, hey, suicide rates have gone up. We're having more students drop out because of, whatever the case may be. And
Mm.
coming forward with those statistics, it sounds like is the best way to really like start the conversation and at very least get them primed for the eventual process.
And I would think there's nothing worse on the history of a school board or a superintendent's career than to have been there when a suicide has happened. I mean, you know, that that to me would be an awful thing to have had happen on your watch, so to speak. And, not that it's their fault, but let's do whatever we can to have that not happen. Um, so
Mhm.
and I think powerful videos, that are not long and drawn out and syrupy and sappy and too dramatic, but just powerful. I think those are effective. So,
Yes, and like not oversaturating the information.
right,
Yeah, making sure
right,
that it's like concise,
right,
factual, and then let it be what
right.
it is. Mhm.
Yeah.
So as far as same question, and we're gonna go on to people in the mental health services. So social workers, counselors, school psychologists, and school. I put school nurses in there too, even though they're
Mhm.
technically not mental health services.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, as far as reaching out to them and
yeah. Do you think the
engaged.
the method is different, or would you
Mhm.
recommend doing something very similar?
Yeah. So I think that school psychologists are pretty well informed, and tend to be on board. I we're just so fortunate here to have a young, freshly trained, on top of it, school psychologist that's just all about mental health. And um, you know, we're extremely, extremely fortunate. So there wasn't any need to uh sell her this idea. She's like, "Whatever you need from me, I'm on board." And she attends our meetings sometimes, not all the time. She's super busy, but she's certainly one of our pizzas that we recommend is going into the RTI process. Um, and to see if a student might need evaluated. Um, we don't have a school nurse, so that's not relevant for us. But I think, that group of people, tends to be open to, we've got mental health issues and we need to do something.
Right, which yeah, this definitely seems like the group that would be the easiest to
Yeah,
get on
for
board, and
sure.
maybe even
For
be advocates for convincing other members,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
to hop on board.
how can I help?
Right.
Or, like I think our school psychologist would be on our team if she had time. She's a contract person, so it really doesn't make sense for her to spend her time on our team. But we connect with her often about students that come through our team. So, um, yeah,
Okay. And last group would be transportation staff and food service providers, which I'm not sure
it,
if it's
it does. It's not relevant
yeah.
for us. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll skip that one. Um, the next question is, what resources were helpful during the past school year from OSWI, and what was beneficial from the support you received?
Yeah. So I think some of the resources that were helpful were suggestions of screening tools. Um, we were able to get a list of screening tools to review and choose from. So that was good. I had contact once in a while from Tyria Bird, our regional person, just talking back and forth with her about how we were progressing and if she felt like we were on track, like moving the way we should be. Just kind of for me as the leader of the team, going back and forth with her. Um, and she was very encouraging and yes, you're on track, you're doing great, you're doing what we had hoped you would be doing. So that was really positive, just as an affirmation of um you're you're meeting the expectations of a pilot school and what we had wanted you to do. So that was good. We Our school did not choose to use Abre. Um, the administration did not want to purchase that system. And so we just continued to use the system that we had. So that isn't something that we took part in. But I think, the resources that were sent through email to, check this out and, were always helpful. So,
That's good to hear.
yeah.
Um, and did you feel like you did more reaching out or they did or OSWI did more reaching out as far as like communication went?
Yeah. I would say I truly, I don't know how to say this. I don't want this to come across as wrong, but I've been in leadership positions a lot in my career, and I kind of felt like I took the ball and ran with it because I've done a lot of programming and program creation. So I felt like I kind of knew what we were wanting to do and just had went for it. Um, so I didn't feel like I needed a ton of direction. Um, I reached out on a few things that, we felt like we needed some suggestions on. So I would say it was 50-50.
Okay, awesome.
If I had felt more lost or in need, I'm guessing that they would have been there. I just didn't find myself in that situation of I'm not really sure where to start or how to do this. Because I just have done a lot of program building before, so I felt okay with moving forward.
Okay, which makes sense. And I think it's good to be able to acknowledge like, okay, this person has this expertise and might not need as much hands-on, like
Yeah.
step-by-step guidance. So I think that make like a lot like notifying OSWI like, hey, okay, this, in this scenario, they didn't need as much hands-on. Whereas like my last interview, I had a person that was like, I would have liked more communication. I would like them to reach out more.
Mhm.
So it just depends on the group, how
Right.
much communication
Exactly.
needs to happen.
Exactly. And really myself and the other therapist, I mean, we're both 60 years old, and we've had 30 plus year careers and we kind of know what we're doing.
Right, yeah.
Um, it was nice to have a framework. Here's our idea, go with it, and we did. So,
Mhm.
um,
And so, in that process, did you feel like you received an adequate amount of support?
yeah,
And yeah, okay,
I would say so. Yes.
okay. And do you feel like you still need any resources from OSWI or just more of the same, where it's like that communication every so often?
I think more the same, and I think there were communications of resources offered to me that at times I didn't, um, partake in just because I felt like I think I think we're on the track that we want to be on, or sometimes it was just like I didn't have the time, to maybe a couple meetings that I could have gotten in on, but it was like I had something else I had to do, or like I said, my work's pretty crisis driven on certain days. And so, you know, I just wasn't able to engage in a particular thing, and it was okay. I do feel like if I had been struggling, I knew who to reach out to, and saying, hey, we're drowning. So,
So it doesn't sound like you really faced a lot of barriers when
no,
it came to okay.
no, no.
That's awesome.
The barriers that we face are kind of unique to us with that several locations thing. And, we are just trying to navigate. And I think it's really kind of unique to us. From when I've talked to the woman that specializes with the digital, um, most digitals don't have lab locations like we do that are in person. So we're kind of this unique entity, I think, in the grant recipients. I don't think there's another program or school that's quite the same as Goal is. And that's okay. You know, we just have to continue to figure out what works for us.
And I think it's good to have a variety of types of
Right,
schools as well, because you want to be able to help as many different
right,
types of people in different types of scenarios as possible. So
yes. And what we all have in common is a lot of kids that need a lot of help. So,
exactly. That is true. And so how has staff wellness been brought up in the past year? What's been beneficial and what still needs to be done?
yeah. So we did a staff wellness survey at the beginning of last school year, and I thought we got a really good response. It was like, I don't know, maybe 75% of the staff returned the survey, which I thought was really good. I don't think we did enough. The Our superintendent did have us present the results of the survey at a board meeting, um, which was good. And the board was attentive and paid attention and asked some questions. Um, but didn't see a lot of movement from some of the things that were identified. There were a couple cool things that happened that were kind of grassroots. Um, some of the interest that came up, people in different labs took it upon themselves. One lab started a book club because that was one of the common interests that came out. And it was really cool because we could do that meeting virtually if there were people in other staff in other labs that wanted to participate in the discussions, they could. So that was cool because that was one of the things that people said they were interested in. Um, some of the things that staff identified, as very stressful, um, we did see a little bit of an increase in um, some stress reducing perks, I think, from the administration. Just some ways to earn a couple hours off by doing some extra things, just some little things where administration responded to staffs. We're working as hard as we can and we're stressed. Um, but um, there weren't really official responses, you know, but some subtle things. I hope that we do more. Um, I see a lot of stressed staff. It's funny because, you know, and maybe I'm saying this prematurely, but maybe the worst of COVID is over. But people are still struggling, being back. It just I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but there's like a residual, I don't know, lostness amongst even the staff.
Yeah, and that's yeah. because it just because the event is over doesn't mean the feelings associated with the event are
Yeah.
over, and that's
Yeah.
gonna linger for a while with the students and with the staff.
Mm.
I know I used to work for an after school program, and one of my coworkers had a car accident while she was shuttling the kids.
Oh,
And, it wasn't her fault.
right.
Everything was handled. Nobody got hurt or anything like that. But I didn't feel like our company supported her in her healing process because, she got a couple of weeks off, so on and so forth. And she came back, but she was genuinely traumatized and
For sure.
like didn't want to drive, didn't want to even look at a shuttle.
Yeah.
And I wish that, and it was a very small company, mind you, it's not always like feasible to do everything, but I
Mhm.
think since it was so apparent and something that we all could see was going on, that the administrators could have, stepped in a little more
Yeah.
and did something to assist with that process of healing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those kinds of things where it's like, okay, I could see this issue. This person came forward about this issue, or even if it's you just seem a little more agitated than normal, and being able to respond and say, "Hey, everything good? Like, what can we do? How?"
Right.
Those kinds of
Yeah.
things.
Yep.
Um,
So
well, Amy, I would like to say thank you so much on behalf of OSWI. We are so grateful and appreciative and thankful that you took the time to do this interview with us today. And we look
yeah.
forward to continuing the expansion of the SAP program with contributions from people like you. Conversations are necessary for the growth and evolution of this, and we
Researchers.
can't, right, and we can't do this without your feedback. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been an enjoyable conversation. So you have a great rest of the day.
Hey everyone, my name is Mark Anthony Garrett. I want to welcome everybody here today. I am so excited because we're here with the Ohio School Wellness Initiative, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Miss Alicia Shields. She is the Director of Special Education at Perry Local Schools, and that's located in Lake County, Ohio. So, Lisa, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure and honor to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So I want to jump right into the content, but first and foremost, I want to thank you for what it is you do. Want to thank you for your service to the world of education.
And you as well. It's my pleasure. I love what I do, and I am very, very passionate, excited to talk about it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, as we talk about the Ohio School Wellness Initiative and the SAP, which is the Student Assistance Program, there were just a few general questions that we wanted to ask you to kind of get your perspective. And question number one is simply this: how do you decide who should be on your student assistance teams? And do you have, or do you work very hard to recruit, or are people just willing to do it? And any tips on how people can you can get people to buy in? So first part of the question: how do you decide who should be on your student assistance teams?
All right. So for Perry, what we did in the OSWI grant is to attach it to the work we're already doing. Student assistance plans and programs are very important to us, and they've been important to us for a long time. What we wanted to do is embed it in our work to help us improve and get better. So that is just aligned to our MTSS, or our multi-tiered systems of support. So when we look at helping improve outcomes for students academically, on that other side of that triangle, we embedded our SAP into our multi-tiered systems of support for the social and emotional behavior piece. And then for us this year, we included the staff wellness piece. So anytime we talk about our students who have needs in various levels, we also talk about supporting our staff as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, was it hard to kind of get people engaged? Did you have to pull teeth, or were more people more excited just about becoming part of the initiative?
Well, again, we didn't kind of view it as an initiative. We embedded it into the work we're already doing. So we wanted to strengthen our response to intervention and meet students' needs, both, academically, and then do a better job social and emotionally. So no, we didn't have to pull any teeth. It just just slid beautifully right into all what we are already doing. We didn't need to add staff or administrators. We just needed to utilize the framework to improve our systems. And then that eventually, improved our ability to meet more kids' needs where they were, monitor their growth and progress, and be able to help them in a more efficient and effective way. And also helped us not miss kids. We don't use a deficit model. We use a strength model. And so we don't look at kids who can't, but we look at kids who can. And then we look at things that we want to look at, and even a more, systematic and specific way of ways we can help them get even better.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, I love the way how you stated that you embedded it right in, but people who maybe don't do that, are there any particular tips you would have on maybe how to get people to buy in?
Well, I think in whatever you do, change is hard for anyone. And I think buy-in is always hard. So when it's not change and it's not anything you have to sell and it becomes embedded in your beliefs, what you believe in, if it's hooked to what you're already doing well, I really am a believer in using strengths and looking at how you get better. So when you hook things that are important and meaningful and you have a strong why, I really do think if you have a big reason as to why that's important, and always keeping it centered on the student. I think for schools, when we focus on it's going to impact the kids, it's great for kids, it's already what we're already doing, and it's already impacting in a big way. I think you don't need buy-in. Everyone's already there on the bus and they're just bringing more people along with them.
I love it. I love it. And I love the fact that if we kind of remember that why we do what we do, and always remember that it's always connected to the kids, it makes it a little bit more easier to make those decisions. So thank you so much. Thank you. So I'm going to jump to question number 2, which simply asks, it says, many groups are worried about the time commitment involved in executing an effective SAP. Can you speak on to this and how your building addresses the need?
To building a SAP or a student assistance team.
Correct.
Yeah. And again, I challenge any school to take a look at what they're already doing and tell me how it doesn't already fit in. I think if you don't look at it as something new and you look at, maybe we're spending a lot of time talking at the hallway about things that didn't go well that day. Well, that's something that's already in your everyday work, and then you just want to carve out time. So it's hard. But you do have to make that commitment. So we meet as a district every Wednesday, and each building, we're a small campus, each building has their day when they bring their team in and they talk about the data and they talk about kids. And it gets to the point now where you don't have to remind anybody to come. They can't wait to get there. We have a strong why too, and we have a strong agenda and a strong commitment to what we're going to do during that time. So half the time people can't wait to get there. And we did struggle last year with, things like you don't have an RTI, or I don't know how you get kids help. Well, this really helped our teachers have a stronger voice and have us have a voice as to how we respond to kids' needs.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So question number 3 talks about and asks, what strategies have you found to be helpful in engaging students to participate?
Well, again, we built this into our PBIS system. So when we look at increasing capacity and skills, we look at first getting experts, and that's important to your SAP team. You got to have the right people in the right seat on the bus. So you do need a variety of experts that can support the kids. Relationship is key. You got to take time. Nothing happens over, you got to commit to the time. And then you got to look at what your goals are and how you can support that. So embedding it into how you're already positively reinforcing kids, what skills and structures you want to teach and how you're using to teach that, how you want to monitor progress. We did invest in Branching Minds, and some panorama surveys. So the panorama takes the survey. Branching Minds helps us monitor our plans in our SNAP assistance team. So kids commit to helping, we can put that plan in and give people opportunities to give feedback on how the progress is going. So that has been a great lift for us, and it has been remarkable, and it's been really helpful.
Wonderful, wonderful. Before I jump to the next question, I want to go do a little sidebar here and just ask you on a personal level, what is it about this whole process that excites you personally as a director of special education?
Well, the thing is, it's everything you asked about. You know, it sort of helped Perry. We had a lot of good stuff going on. We were working hard, and the kind of the format of the SAP action planning and some of the other things and some of the technical assistance and things helped us kind of get all of our boats rowing in the same direction. And so we were able to make a lot more progress. I think the thing that it excites me most is that we are able to talk about kids from a strength perspective. We're able to make a commitment, follow that commitment, and we're able to see our outcomes. And we call it student-centered planning. So if a student is really struggling, we get together, we figure out what we need to do, we implement, we monitor progress, and then if it doesn't work, we do something different. If it does work, we're on to the next thing about how we get better at the next thing and the next thing. So I mean, just doing what I do and coming to work with these great people excites me. Oh my gosh. Our students are incredible. Our families are incredible. So I just work in general, but I have really appreciated the format and the technical assistance from the OSRI grant in terms of how it really helped us come together with a common set of goals that were already embedded in our everyday thinking, but just moved us a little bit further. Does that answer that question?
Yes, it does. Yes,
Okay.
it does. And it really ties into the next question in that you talked a little bit about parents. So the next question is, what strategies have you found to be helpful in engaging caregivers, so like parents, guardians, kinship care and such?
So the parent and the guardian or the kinship care or the sibling, I mean, they're just a part of everything we do. And we're a team, and also that community support as well. So always picking up that phone, always having that communication, always having them be part of the decision making, never talking at them, but with the whole team and to the team. I think being responsive to our differences and celebrating our common goal, and we all just want what's best for the kids, coming at it at a different view. But also we do a lot of outreach. Well, we include the community. So we have a wellness assistance team, and when they meet, we do community coffees. We invite parents to give us feedback about things that we need to improve on. And every school is faced with critical issues right now, whether it be financing, bullying, inclusion, a lot of things. So we really reach out to our families in an individual and then in a bigger way by first, getting them to be part of all the decisions, and then in a bigger way, inviting them to come into our we just did 4 community, not coffees, but community events where we invite them to come in and talk about certain topics. We kind of share what we're doing and then ask them to give us feedback about what we're doing and what we should do better. And then we also do that within our district, and we include our community providers such as our Crossroads, our other agencies that are coming in, our social worker. And we always use student voice too. So within that, we're always including and assuring that if students don't sign up, that we're going out and asking any student to come in and be a part of all of our work and forecasting and looking at how we move forward.
I love that. And it seems like you've taken this holistic approach where you get everybody involved and everybody's feedback and buy-in.
Yeah, it's been great. It's not always fun because sometimes you hear things that either kind of you didn't know, and you have to own that and accept it and figure out, sometimes you hear things that are a little bit hard to hear. But that baseline just gives you a lot of foundation and momentum as you move forward into how you're gonna get better with that continuous improvement mindset.
I think that's awesome. I think it's awesome. So my next question for you, Lisa, is simply this. What are some ways you are able to ensure the plans created for students are individualized and individually based on their needs and not just some cookie cutter approach?
Well, that's what we call person-centered planning. And so we do it using a team. We do it in a team approach, and we use the data though, and we have the student involved. We have all the stakeholders involved, and then we put that plan into Branching Minds, and then we monitor that plan. And when it doesn't work, like we put a plan in place 2 weeks ago and it didn't work, we just met again today and we changed that plan with the student, and we make the student a big focus of the plan. I think that did that answer your question?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So my next question is simply this. What tips do you have for working with community partners? Now, you kind of alluded to that a little bit earlier, but are there any particular tips or strategies that you have or you've created or your team's created to work with community partners, especially as it relates to getting their full buy-in?
I do have a tip for this one, is be clear on what your goals are and be clear on kind of what their role is, because we all come to the table with our own excitement and things that we want to do and things that we love to talk about and things that we think are important, and they are important. But if I'm coming with this idea and you're coming with this idea, then we spend a lot of time kind of talking about ideas, and we don't necessarily get a lot accomplished. And then sometimes people feel leaving like it was a waste of their time. So I learned that if people know ahead of time, like what their goal is, what their outcome should be, they then agree that that's what they want to be part of. They come ready to kind of roll up their sleeves and give that feedback and get that information and give that advisement, and then I think everyone feels like they've been a part of something and the outcomes are pretty substantial, and no one should be inactive. Everyone needs to be an active participant. You need to set in your goals and agendas opportunities for them to give their feedback and to then go back and do the work. So I do feel like being very clear on everyone's role and solution centered and look at what you hope to accomplish. It's a beautiful dance, but it's very helpful.
I love it. I love it. Let me ask you this. Going through this process, have there been any type of epiphanies or aha moments that you and your team have discovered as you went through this process?
I don't know if we've had any epiphanies or ahas, except for how well aligned it's been. I think, when we first started, I would say things like, we're not going to call this initiative, and we were also part of another grant, and how easily it just, even though the grant was in the middle school, how well it really impacted our elementary and our high school, and how we all just are able now to come together and how it already fit into our PBIS. So the epiphany of how easy it is. It's not hard, and how well it just kind of slid and fit right in, and then gave us a little bit more momentum. But I think that I really have to say the resources that OSWE provided, I loved the modules that we participated in terms of prevention. That really helped us get thinking about how to improve our prevention services, which were right aligned to our guidance counselors evaluation system. So what they're required to do is exactly what is part of the OSWE kind of action plan and the questions it asks you to think about. And then I think the other epiphany was the staff wellness, how we didn't have to hire a consultant or do anything. Some of that information that came from those modules were super helpful in helping our PLCs just go to town. And now we have a staff wellness where we're getting people together on that common PBIS app to do things together. We're going to have mental health wellness check-ins available during our PD day and times. We also have opened our gym areas for lunch during the day. They can come in and use any of the fitness equipment with knowledge that it's okay. They're validated. If you need to go work out right there, go. And then also we've implemented a tap in, tap out. That was through where if a teacher's having a rough time, they know without judgment, just call someone, either your partner or a central office administrator or your building administrator, to just go get a break. And, instead of having to endure, to trust that we care about you and we know it doesn't make you weak, just go take a walk and we got this together. So I think that our wellness piece on the OSWE has been really, our staff wellness has been really nice. And again, slid beautifully into our PLC. People took it over and owned it, and off we go.
That is just incredible. That is just incredible that you guys have kind of put this together. And I love that whole wellness piece and the check-ins and the tap in and tap out. That's just amazing. So my last question is simply this. It says, many schools have shared that partnering with mental health programs has been easier than integrating substance abuse prevention and intervention programs. Can you share some of your successes in this area or recommendations you would have for buildings that need some ideas?
I would agree with that. I think that's a very powerful statement. And I think also most schools are really good at that tier 3, but I realized that the prevention piece and setting, like forecasting 3 years ahead or whatever is a challenge. So what we were able to do is to use our ESC resource to do some strategic planning about our prevention and looking at what we're doing, but what our data says we need to do better. And so as experts, she's coming in and they're helping our CARES, it's our district wellness PLC, determine what kind of prevention we need to put in place and what prevention we're going to use for that. So we're in the middle of doing that strategic planning, and Karen Lackey is her name, and she's with the grant. She's been phenomenal in helping our team look at, what's intervention, what's prevention, what's tier 3, what's tier 1, and it is accurate. We contract with a lot of providers. They come in, they give us one-on-one tier 3 support. We have social workers, we have SEL specialists, but that prevention, that committed systematic long-term prevention planning are usually one and dones. And that's what they've helped us really understand, that, is it a one and done? And then how do you get out of that trap so that you can look at systematic and sustainable intervention that is research-based, that is trauma responsive, that are all the things that needs to be. And that is, you're getting into unicorn land when you get there. And so we have a ways to go.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I just want to thank you for what it is you do once again. Thank you for taking the time out. That concludes all of our questions. You have been awesome. The information has been concrete, has been laser focused, and just want to once again thank you for taking your time out of your schedule to be part of this. You are just absolutely amazing, and thank you once again, and best of luck in all that you do.
Thank you, and you made this interview easy. You are a blessing as well. Thank you.